Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Rob H, Ben White, Maximum Gravy, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Harry Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Muted, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will raise the mic on whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Oh, I don't know. They must know. They're either coming on doing some just getting us at it. Like they might know. They obviously they might know, but they're just coming on causing utter nonsense and chaos. I mean, that guy yesterday. 1 minute he's saying, "Yeah, I need a horizon," then I don't need a horizon. I do need a flat baseline. I don't need a flat baseline. Just go round and round. They don't know what they're on about. They just keep changing the bleeding minds about everything.
Oh, I have Zanuck in my DMs talking about, let me find his exact wording so I can use it properly. He's talking about, I was using circular units, where is it? He's talking about reciprocal angles in a circle. Some crap like that. He's talking about circular
that's what they were talking about yesterday.
angles.
Same thing.
And then he goes from that to talking about triangles and trigonometry and stuff. Well,
yeah, the co-altitude uses an arc angle, but that's not a shape. That's an angle. The triangle that they're denying is the one you draw on the ground. But I mean, any angle, it doesn't matter if you're drawing a triangle with it or not, still needs a flat baseline.
Whatever they're saying, how many horizons they need, whatever they're using, they need a flat baseline to start with. They need one. They've got to have one. There's no curve required. They can't do it on a globe.
Has there been any other argument that's got them scrambling right now? Zanuck, Gruhith, whoever those guys were yesterday, Virus, Nicktoons, they're all scrambling.
Well, I think that the reason they're scrambling isn't because they know the globe is bullshit. It's that they don't have an answer. And
correct. That's what I mean. Did I lose everybody?
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else. Yeah.
No, I just said
they
correct.
Don't have an answer.
Yeah, they don't have an answer. I would hope that if they couldn't prove the globe, or they would turn from their stupid ways, but that won't happen. What's up, Tent?
This isn't a question about proving the globe. It's proving a flat Earth. That's what's got them so messed up.
Good morning.
Morning, Tent.
Morning.
Hey.
I couldn't finish the show yesterday. How did it end? It was wild and crazy, and then I had to go. It was how long did it go?
Oh, I was texting you to come in because these guys that came in at the end, it was right up your alley. You could explain it to them. I'm working.
I got a quick question for you if you guys don't mind. Is a reciprocal angle and a complementary angle the same thing?
No.
Yeah, I got Zanuck saying this right here. Reciprocal angle of a unit circle, that's what we are doing, would be pi over 6, and that reciprocal is 6 over pi. That's the same thing as a complementary angle. Literally just professing that he's a dumbass. I don't get it.
Why is he using a two-dimensional circle to prove a three-dimensional sphere?
Exactly. That's the same
Right.
as a complementary. All right. Why would you need something that's spherical to be the same as something that's used on a flat plane? Is it because we're going to be doing it on a flat plane and you're going to therefore say how it could and would work on a sphere after you've done it on a flat plane? Here's how it could work. Check it out. All right. How interesting. Meanwhile, their reciprocal zenith angles aren't an elevation angle measurement, are they? First step, measure elevation angle. That's going to require a flat plane. It's the beginning and end of the argument.
I noticed that Akuma virus kept on talking about how when you ask him how you get an angle with a curved baseline, he kept on talking about drawing this new baseline to get an angle and calling it a tangent. But that was a concession. I don't think he realized he was conceding that you can't get an angle from a curved baseline when he was saying it.
Isn't that their disco ball?
Well, the question isn't how do you use eyesight to draw a tangent to the horizon. That wasn't the question. It was how do you get an angle from a curved baseline? And his response was to draw a straight baseline.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When I say they're disco ball, they got those little tangent planes, the mirrors like on a disco ball. And wherever they go, they have to be on a flat plane. So they just keep moving. It's I can't even explain it so far. I mean, we live on a flat plane, but when you move on the curve, you got to carry that flat plane with you because it won't work on the curve. So you got to keep the flat plane to keep the curve. It's so dumb. Nathan, I posted a slide in Master B yesterday, but it went unnoticed, or maybe I left too early, but it's up now.
Angle, exterior angles.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got so this I saw at the beginning of the research, and so I was studying what a vertex was, and an angle is two rays or two straight lines, whichever you have it, meeting at a common point called a vertex. So from inside the circle, obviously you can get a radius, and we've seen how that works. The four quadrants of a circle, all 90 degrees. But now outside of a circle, let's look at it. An exterior angle, so exterior keyword, is formed by two secants, two tangents, or a secant and a tangent, drawn from a point outside the circle. The vertex lies outside the circle. I believe when Virus was talking about tangential, this is what he was talking about. I could be wrong. But where is the vertex? It's outside. You're supposed to have it at the observer who's taking the angle measurement. So this was ridiculous in my mind.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, they're just taking circles and vertexes that can work with a circle and trying to say that that's a globe. So I don't know exactly what Zanuck's about, but he's still dealing with a two-dimensional object.
They're desperately trying to get the horizon into this as a geometric obstruction. It's there's a desperation. You can see it like when they're willing to be backhanded for claiming it was refracted for 2 years, like they're desperate to get that in there so they can get a straight baseline to measure an angle.
Yeah, they're just trying to pull you into different bits and pieces of crap, and that's what I've been dealing with today in the chat. And it's just, you need a baseline, you need a horizontal baseline, and that's it, mate. You can't. That's what you need, and you're not going to get it on a globe. End of story.
Yeah, because even drawing a straight line to a geometric obstruction would still require them to correct that belief back to the horizontal. So it's just a meaningless circle jerk, really.
So how did it end? Still, how long did it go?
I think Nathan must have a sore throat.
Over
I'm
5
good. I'm all good.
hours from when he started.
Nathan, are you trying to kill yourself doing stuff like that? I mean, are you feeling better?
I'm all right.
It was amazing. You know.
I was so embarrassed for them. Like my face was turning red when Akuma virus was going on with that. Like I was absolutely humiliated for him. I had to leave. I couldn't deal with it. It was just humiliating.
I wanted to share the show with my school teacher cousin, Kathy, but I couldn't, Nathan. Do you want to know why I couldn't share the show?
Because she was swearing in it.
I didn't hear you.
Why, Neil? Why?
Too many you know whats in a row. I mean, there was like 30 of them, Nathan.
What are you know what's?
Mother.
There was lots of swearing, yes. Because where John says he's embarrassed, I'm outraged. So when they start denying the premise that they've laid down 2 sentences later, that enrages me.
I think the sound of your balls rubbing on his head sounded pretty good.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Listen, that's funny. I could deal with that. And one of the 2 of them is okay. But see, people that, like if I shared that with my cousin, she wouldn't know where this is coming from. You know what I mean? But we know how long this is going on and how they've been circle jerking and how they just rinse and repeat. So we know.
that. Okay, well you'll be pleased to know that I trimmed out 2 sections so far. And did I do the second? I can't remember if I did it with the second one. But I've picked bits with limited swearing, and where there's overt excessive swearing, I've trimmed it out. Don't get me wrong, there's still going to be 1 or 2 more, there's going to be a fuck or 2 in there. But I have edited the majority of that out. For instance, there was a long tirade where I told him he could have his tongue ripped out in hell and forced up his anus. That I cut out.
See, that you should have left in.
You
Well,
like...
how much of that was?
Go on.
I was going to ask you how much of that was actual anger. Like how much was theatrics for
90-10.
10% was theatrical?
No, the other way around. 90% theatrical, 10% actual outrage that he's lying. He's not. He's double speaking, right? It's very different to other people I've called out on liars. In the heat of the moment, I'll call him a liar and ham it up by saying, you can have your tongue cut out in hell. Because at the time, at that particular moment, he's saying, I didn't just say words to the effect of, you're going to need to be on the tangent plane in order to get the GP. In other words, you're going to have to be on this flat bit with a sphere underneath it in order to do any of this. Now, when he said that, he immediately started denying that he'd said it. So it's like, well, you're a lying shit. Because he is. At that moment. But he's nice, just trying to weasel his way. He's Weasley as opposed to a liar. I mean, it's in the moment. It's not preemptively worked out in his mind how he's going to construct this piece of deception. Do you know what I mean? So 90% theatrics, 10% actual outrage.
But, you know, before with the geometric horizon, it would have been a lot easier for them to keep working in circles on this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The issue.
Yeah. Now they have to, Virus had to say, there's nothing wrong with the black swan. Meaning, there's everything wrong with this, I can't get around it. Because he needs a straight line.
When he said there's nothing wrong with the black swan, maintaining a sphere belief, he now thinks that the Earth is larger than the orbital path of the moon in his model.
I didn't drop that in at the time when he said, yeah, we've got a straight line out to the horizon. And the reason black swan horizon beyond the oil rigs, that is, the reason I didn't say that, because it crossed my mind, but I'm like, what is he actually saying in this moment? He's saying, we establish a horizontal plane, we do it with a straight line out to the horizon. Do I say, well, that debunks your globe, because if that was the case, then that would be the geometry and it would be on the orbital path of the moon in the heliocentric model. Massive, massive sphere. Or do I say, in order to navigate the plane we're all in agreement of, the one you've slapped on top of your sphere, we draw a straight line, as you've just described, to the horizon. Yeah? So we're going to be using a flat plane and a straight line to the horizon to get it. I'd rather focus on that, which is what I did, so it didn't get a mention, but I'm glad you're mentioning it now.
The geometry and the math that they corrupted is coming back at full force at them.
Yeah, it's biting them in the ass. Refracted, refracted, refracted. Okay, are you going to get a straight line? Oh, the black swan's all good.
Yeah,
What's
they
that?
spent 2 years. They spent 2 years building up a wall, and then it's like we walk around the wall, and they turn around and run face first into the wall.
Yep, exactly. Good analogy.
But a lot of them are just Googling it and it's saying refraction and they're just spitting out whatever they're reading. They don't even know what they're talking about.
Those are the foot soldiers who parrot, but the ones who construct the arguments are corrupting geometry and math. And you can only do that for so long.
Correct. And that guy was getting fed. It was taking too long for him to come back with an answer.
How do we go beyond them? How do we go beyond the foot soldiers in the perception of the audiences that we gain and the people that we talk to? How do we leave the foot soldiers out and get more credible to the people?
Okay,
I'll answer that.
I'll answer it first.
Let me go first. Let me go first.
No, let me go first. Well, okay, fine. You go
flip
first.
A coin.
Then.
Flip a coin.
Toss the coin. Call.
Tails.
No, it's heads. I'll go first.
Okay.
You go first. Go ahead. No, seriously. Don't want to be a liar.
Wait a second. You should have said heads I win, tails you lose.
That's great. All right. So here's my take on it. The foot soldiers are dying. There are no more foot soldiers. They're all embarrassed. They're dying. So next plan.
No, that's
Who's
not
coming out.
Okay.
No, hang on. Let me finish.
Okay.
This is important. So all the foot soldiers meet the death like Virus did. Okay. I mean, just terrible. Have to admit to flat Earth. A new plan has to be devised. So stronger, more notable, the one you've been asking for, Virus. Someone with some clout will step up to save the day. That's what's next. If it's even going to happen, that would be what's next, because all the foot soldiers are dead or dying. Go on.
Okay, I was going to say, to answer his question, which you didn't, how do we reach a wider audience that aren't anti-flat earther, fundamentalist religious zealots, double-speaking liars? How do we reach those? Well, it's very simple. We pray.
That's not the question.
We pray. So join me.
Share the show.
Join me in prayer. O algorithm, who art in YouTube, bless us with thy search results. Amen.
That wasn't the
Very much.
question.
That wasn't the question.
No, you got to smash that super chat and hit the freaking share button. Keep that show going.
You want it to go? Make it PG rated. It'll go farther than you could even imagine.
What was the
But
question?
the
I
question-
paraphrased it sufficiently. Come on. Don't ruin my joke.
Well, my question was, how do we, through speaking to more credible sources, reach the audiences that we gain?
Through speaking to more credible
we're
sources.
always going to have the audience, whoever we're talking to. That's always going to be the case. But 9 times out of 10, that audience is watching me talk to someone, and they're learning from that experience. How do we move away from them learning in that way, looking at me talking to foot soldiers, to us talking to more credible people? How do we get to the credible people to have our audience see that interaction?
They just have to see us. So you have to have a reactive audience that you're describing to interact with us. So at the beginning of each show, I'm like, please share the show. Not only does it increase the live audience numbers, which obviously it does, it increases the chances of a more diverse panel. That's precisely what I'm speaking to when I say share the show. In other words, if this is under the nose of that person you're describing, and they hear what we're saying, and they go, no, they'll feel inclined to correct us in some way. Now, maybe that's the case in comments. Maybe those people do come and they just don't join the show. But it's just a numbers game at that point, isn't it? The more people that are exposed to what we are disseminating, the more likely they will be either on the fence and wanting to clarify, or outraged and wanting to correct us. Either way, that is solely dependent on prayer. So let's pray again. Oh, algorithm.
Oh my goodness, this
Oh,
is desperate. Desperate. Look, it's real
Hold on.
simple. The George Martin took the Beatles where the Beatles couldn't take themselves.
Correct.
So you need a manager.
A manager?
Yeah. I could take you to places you haven't even begun to think of if
Oh.
you just follow some instructions. You got a great show.
He's not going to stop swearing.
Don't interrupt the George Martin speech. So think about it. Everyone who listens to the show has a larger group they're not sharing the show with. I'll admit I'm one of them. I share your show with 3 individuals who can handle you.
Yes, my one person is Jamel. There aren't too many other people that can take it.
Yeah, so I can't share with the other 300.
Yeah, I don't
So
think that's...
I
just in case I get
Sorry.
shit for this, so I'm going to let you go in a sec, one deck. I don't think that's down to the swearing, although that might play into the actual reason. You know, we're at the tip of the spear. Much of what we discuss relies on 2 things. Good comprehension of the discussion at hand in the moment, and a good understanding of the arguments that have come to fruition up until now. Well, if you're a newbie, you'll have neither. So it'll all be a bit confusing, to say the least. And especially when you get to a point like, well, is it a geometric, with virus yesterday, is it a geometric straight line to the horizon in front of the oil rigs? Or is it a refracted tangentless horizon behind it? Which one? Now, if you came into the discussion and heard that, you'd go, what? What the hell does that mean? And then when he responds with, yeah, it's a straight line to the horizon, as a listener, you go, okay. And then I go, yeah, welcome to Fly, suck my fucking balls, yeah! They don't understand why. So yeah, the swearing plays into it because they don't understand necessarily why such outrage has befallen the person who's just said, well, yeah, it's a straight line to the horizon. Well, they don't necessarily follow that we've had 2 straight years of them telling us every line to the horizon is always bent because of terrestrial refraction based on a misapprehension and bait and switch between actual refraction, Snell's law, and 7/6 of a radius value, standardized terrestrial refraction. Not refraction, actually based on R. Well, when they assert that misapprehension, you've got to understand that. So why would you share us with newbies? Now, to me, if there was a newbie, I don't know who I would share with them. Who would you share with them? It's like, you're kind of on your own.
I'm going to let one deck go because he was next, and I'll answer that. Go ahead, one deck.
Go ahead.
Me too. Put me in the queue.
On a similar sort of note, I consider myself a newbie in this arena with you guys. So when I found your show, Nathan, I was finding some of the topics difficult to get a hold on. Some I still do a little bit. Anyway, recently I have been sharing the show. I'm in a few groups, like I said yesterday. They've got thousands of followers in some of these freedom fighters groups. And I've had some messages back saying they clocked in and they enjoyed it. But I always feel, like you just said, for a newbie, it'd be good to go back to the basics for them. I don't know. I'm not saying maybe have a back to basics show, but and we do have the questions at the beginning of the show. But yeah, if you're coming in on that level, it's like, whoa, what are they talking about? So back to basics for the newbies. I don't know how we'd do that. Starting at the beginning and explaining things.
Well, no, you've set it up for me perfectly. In recruiting and building a brokerage, an agency, you always have to have newbies. If you don't have newbies, it's like a lake with no outlet. The water gets stale. The agents are there. They're big shots because sold 2 things in 2 months. Newbie comes in and just breaks sales records, keeps everyone's on their toes. And you have rewards and contests, blah, blah, blah. So the whole point is you got to always have fresh blood. So the whole show is about newbies who come in and that we could teach. And then they become another one of us who are powerful and they could go teach 10, 20 others. We got to look at it from that point. Plus, everyone's got the front group of soldiers always parroting until they learn how to fight. So everyone's parroting on the globe side when they hear one of those idiots, and everyone is parroting the 8 housekeeping or 9 housekeeping questions here because they don't fully understand them yet, but they listen to the show and they just copy the words. But as they get involved and understand it, they're now teaching it. And so you have to look at it more of a factory that's putting out more leaders rather than just tip of the spear, blood everywhere, cuss words everywhere. Forget that. I want to reach billion people with this thing. Eli?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, like you say, the housekeeping questions, which are great. Maybe that if a few newbies are in, is more comments and more going back to the original argument and how it came about. Just getting more involved on that. I know sometimes they skip over them quite quickly, and it's no evidence for that, no evidence for that. But for a newbie, just go into it a little bit more and explain things. I had trouble with the refraction thing, trying to get a grip of that in my head, as simple as it is. So everyone has their own little struggles.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now, we are joined by Eli, 10th Man, Refracted Curvature, Arwin, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hey, good morning. Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Today we're going to do housekeeping with a little twist. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about how the arguments came to pass. It may fill the whole show. We might still do it in 20 minutes. We'll see how we get on. But I'm going to do it in a different order, because otherwise we will undoubtedly get hung up on the most prevalent argument of the moment, which we've discussed in the entirety of the pre-show, which would be the elevation angle argument, which is to say you cannot acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline. You can only do celestial navigation if the Earth is flat. So, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, they need to demonstrate it if they think otherwise, but pressure is defined as gas molecules hitting the sides of a container, something solid, something contained.
Well, if you
Well,
think of the container as not a container, it might work.
Well, if I was just going to
Gas
play,
pressure,
Try not to throw too
gas
much
pressure is
confusing
the
stuff in.
force
We just
that
want to...
the gas exerts on the walls of the container. So no.
Yeah, you need to press on the walls of a container. Just for Arwin's benefit, I just want to keep it as concise and on point in terms of the demolition as possible. I'm glad Brian's joined, because it was Brian's suggestion that we do this. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Nathan. What
Hello.
was it I suggested?
You said maybe go through the housekeeping question in a little bit more detail, so we don't necessarily brush past the whys and wherefores and importance, relevance, and need to ask daily of each of these questions, without it just being no, 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 and then we bash through it, or we spend 45 minutes on one question debating about it. But yeah, I'm starting in reverse order. I've asked about gas pressure without a container. Lots of people on the panel and in Discord have pointed out that, you need the walls of a container for gas to press upon. We all breathe gas. We're in a high pressure gas environment. And the assertion is that we've got a sky vacuum, an empty space. Well, that empty space would be, in line with entropic law, where the gas would vacate to if it was real. In other words, the gas would never develop pressure in the first place. We'd be in a suffocating vacuum at sea level, because any gas that escaped the rocks would immediately dissipate into the space. Now, the space we're talking about is outer space, a claim to be vacuum area of available volume for the gas we breathe to fill. So the gas would expand out unless impeded by a container. So when we ask any evidence that you can have gas pressure, that would be the gas pressure we're all breathing, we're in a high pressure gas environment, without a container, in line with the claim that we have a sky vacuum, that would be outer space. The answer is no. The gas would fill the space. We'd all be dead if the sky vacuum, an area where spacemen are claimed to travel and satellites are claimed to beg the question of an orbital motion, that area would leave us all dead. It's a violation of natural law. Outer space is fake. Ergo, all claims of imagery, travel, orbital motion in space are all, by default, automatically debunked. You can't travel to the moon through a second law of thermodynamics violation. Sky vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space. If they can travel into that area, then so can the gas. That's what gas does. It expands to fill space. You can't have an orbital motion in a sky vacuum if the motion of the orbit of the satellite is in a sky vacuum, then the gas can also be in that area. There's nothing impeding its motion into that area, and that's precisely what gas wants to do. Pop a balloon, it's at mildly higher pressure than the pressure you experience as a norm. And what happens? Pop! Well, that's the gas at a slightly higher pressure dissipating to equalise into the available volume it has. Well, there's no balloon around a sphere Earth. It's just an empty space around sphere Earth. It's an absolute nonsense. Outer space is fake. Okay, has anybody got anything to add to that housekeeping question?
I have. John, do you want to go first? I hear you. I see your light flashing. I'll go in after you if you like.
well, I was just going to say, do you want me to give the heliocentric answer that most people believe, so that the relevance of the question is more obvious?
It's on screen right now. Go ahead.
Well, as you go up, the pressure goes down until it reaches an almost perfect vacuum, doesn't it? I mean, you can go outside and see that, right?
Again, that's a violation of natural law. So if you're saying that the gas pressure gradient dissipates to a vacuum, then no, there wouldn't be any gas pressure because it would have nothing to press upon. It doesn't develop into a ever thinning amount of gas unless it's under a contained scenario in the first place. First gas pressure, then gas pressure gradient. I actually thought you were going to say gravity. It's what I expected. Just shout out to Mike. One sec. Shout out to Mike 808. Thank you very much for the super chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, the thing about that is that, like the argument of a gradient, right? Besides them claiming gravity, right? The argument of gradient is a really silly argument because I concede with certain things when they ask us questions. How does this happen? How does that happen? I concede I don't know, right? Because any answer I could give just wouldn't make any sense. But the gradient claim from them is really, really ridiculous because you would have to have the forming of pressure in the first place for the gradient to exist. And they say that the gradient is just a constant gradient of less and less and less pressure as you go higher, higher, higher. This is true, but it's not a uniform gradient, like they say. Because what happens is the majority, and I mean the majority, when I say the majority, I'm talking about, you could say safely 75 to 80% and more than likely, of all our air supply is below the cloud level. So wherever you see clouds in the sky, let's just say, wherever that would be in your area, right? Or let's just say a few miles up, right? You're talking below 6 miles. That's where the majority of our air supply is. And that's because of the oxygen and nitrogen cycles, which make up the majority, 95 or 99, they say. They say 99, I don't know how true that is, it's a calculation. But you could say the majority of our air, over 90%, maybe over 95%, is oxygen and nitrogen. And they're recycling constantly with the surface of Earth. So it's a constant recycle. And then you have the other gases, including water vapor, right, which rises up to these boundary layers to create the clouds, blah, blah, blah. So you have a whole system going on there just a couple of miles up. After that, it continues to thin out and get colder and colder. It gets colder and colder and colder up to 10 miles up where it reaches minus 51 degrees, right, Celsius. After that, though, it starts to heat up. And this is a funny thing. Mr. Sensible sent up his balloons. It was the second one he sent up. He said his second Mage or whatever. And he got a reading at about 24 miles up or 22 miles up or something like that of, I think it was maybe a bit more than that. And it was plus 5 degrees, right? Now, because after 10 miles up, it changes. The temperatures start to rise. But what happens is, because of it being minus 51 at 10 miles up, and majority of our air being below basically cloud level or whatever, even if you're in a place like it's very hot that doesn't have much clouds, all the air is still recycling just a couple of miles above the surface. So what you have is a situation where you have very, very little air for a start getting past the cloud layer. Anything that does ends up becoming part of the convection cells, which then the larger convection cells, which then recycle the air, bring it back down. So it's basically, as I showed in my presentation before, it's a conveyor system. It's like a massive filter system that cleans the air. So we end up with constantly clean air, or new cleaner air being basically brought back down to Earth. And that's basically what happens. It's a whole cycle system. So anything past 10 miles up, there's very, very little air getting past that due to the temperatures. And anything that does get past that, it has to start reaching zero before it's going a zero temperature, which would be miles and miles and miles up. You could talk maybe 20 miles up or more before it starts reaching zero. And I mean, that's 10 miles above where it is minus 51. So to get back to zero, it has to go at least another 10 miles up. So how with the tiny amount of air that gets up there, right, it is a gradient, but how are they expecting an increase in they expect there's going to be an increase in, or they would ask us, how come there's not an increase in pressure with the increase in temperature, right? Forgetting that there isn't an increase in temperature or in pressure with the increase in temperature within their claim. So the reason that we don't have that is because of the tiny amount of air that gets up to that point. And it's not until it starts going above zero before you could talk about any real pressure changes happening, right? Any really that you could and there's not enough there to really there's not enough air up there to even create those temperatures. So the ozone layer, there is ozone up there, but there is no ozone layer. That's a complete load of rubbish. So what's creating this extra heat up there? It has to be radiative heat. The sun heating something above it. It has to be. Sun heating a solid surface, something radiative. That's what's creating this extra heat. So they keep on talking about gravity creating a pressure gradient. So they're claiming PV equals nRG, not PV equals nRT. They completely ignore the temperature part. And that's why they had to make up this. I know I'm kind of I'm waffling on here now, but that's why they had to make up this ozone layer, because they had no answer for how come things are getting warmer when there's less and less air. Once you go past 10 miles up, how come it's getting warmer? They know why. NASA knows why, but the general everyday idiot who doesn't have a clue. So it's easy to tell them it's due to an ozone layer. It's like 15 parts per million at its highest concentration. That's what ozone is. At its highest concentration, at 22 miles up, it's 15 parts per million. That's nothing. There's no ozone layer creating an insulation. It's the insulation of heat that's up there is coming from, I think, the sun. It has to be a radiative heat, the sun heating a surface above us. Anyway, but I'm after waffling on enough.
That's all right.
As someone new to this,
go on, John.
I was going to say, as someone new to this subject, I think Brian may have lost them.
Yeah, I
to say that
didn't. I wasn't going to
wrong.
mention that. Let's just keep it. Let's not focus on that. That'll make it even more dilute. Move on. That's my attitude. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Well,
You pick it up and drop something.
I was just going to say, you won't find it with a gas pressure gradient.
No, but is there any
Just
scientific
pick something
evidence?
up and drop.
Any scientific evidence of gravity? And then we're going to get into why we ask.
No, there isn't.
No, just mathematics.
Okie dokie. So why would we ask for scientific evidence of something? I'll answer. Because they're claimed with the whole body of science to have proven this crap. That's why we ask for science. We're told that science, that would be the preachings of people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, are science. And it's not. Science would be the study of the physical and natural world, and that would start with an observed phenomena. And gravity doesn't have one. It's either mass attracting mass now superseded by pseudo-Riemannian force-based time bending, a conceptual medium, space-time, bent. And what caused that? Oh, well, the uneven distribution of mass in this fourth dimension that we don't experience. So this isn't something that exists in physical reality. It's abstract. So there is no scientific evidence of gravity. They'll never show you a physical phenomena because there isn't one. There is no bending space-time.
But when we pick something up.
Go ahead, John.
But when we pick something up and let go of it, it falls back down to the ground.
Releases helium balloon and laughs.
But I didn't pick up the helium balloon, did I?
I did.
Yeah, either way.
And I'm watching it go up into the sky.
This notion of an always down vector is defied by gas. Gas expands in all directions, all vectors, to fill the availability of volume. It doesn't have a downward bias. It's not going down, go boom, boom. Gas expands in all directions. So no, saying that you just drop something, well, only if it's more dense than the air that it's passing through.
Well, I was watching a show called Globebusters, and they said it's due to incoherent dielectric acceleration.
Who cares? That's not exactly
Objection.
a widespread mainstream understanding. So some tin pot little channel talking about dielectric incoherent acceleration doesn't faze me when the entirety of the Western world are under the misapprehension that gravity is either a force that's 107 years out of date, misascribed to Newton, or the bending of a conceptual medium in current rhetoric.
But then they sent me over to this guy named Kent Wheeler, and he's got a whole YouTube channel on it.
I couldn't care less. The mainstream Western world heliocentric gravity is well defined. It's either mass attracting mass, falsely ascribed to Newtonian, actually Reverend John Michell, C.V. Boys, and Cavendish gravity, superseded 107 years ago by Einsteinian pseudo-Ramonian force space-time, bending as a result of the uneven distribution of mass according to his abstract mathematics. That's what gravity is. I don't care what anybody on YouTube says. Meanwhile, there's no scientific evidence for it. Show me gravity. Show me space-time. Show me mass attracting mass. Oh right, gas has mass, according to you. Well, that's not attracting. Quite the opposite, in fact. Elastic collisions, bouncing off.
Well,
again, as a direct result. Go on.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know if I'm should even be talking after the waffle I went on with earlier, but I'll try anyway. But as I stated in one of my short videos, objects, because most people believe that gravity is a force. Now they're wrong, because it's not described that way anymore by mainstream pseudoscience. But the fact that people do believe it, and we argue with a lot of people, or we have argued over the years with a lot of people that state that it's a force, right? Objects weigh more in a vacuum, right? If it was a force creating a gas pressure gradient, right, that would mean that it's pushing down, right? It's pushing down air, right, creating a pressure on the surface of Earth. So if objects weigh more in a vacuum, then that can't be happening, can it? Objects should weigh less in a vacuum under those circumstances, but they don't. Objects weigh more. So for the average everyday person out there, you can be sure there is no gravity creating a gas pressure gradient, because objects would weigh less in the vacuum if there was. But they don't, they weigh more.
Off the back of that, we also ask for any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics. That is to say, any science from any of the fields that claim have proof of a sphere. When you hear, the whole body of science proves we're on a sphere, that's who we're referring to. Okay, so science proves we're on a sphere. What's your science?
Well, I know a particular theoretical physicist who says nobody in my field uses the scientific method. It's leaps of logic. It's seat of the pants. It's guesswork. Michio Kaku.
So when we're asking for a viable hypothesis from any of those fields, we're asking for, in the most diluted, simplistic, dumbed down way, step 2 in the scientific method. Step 1, observe natural phenomena. Step 2, formulate hypothesis. Step 3, perform systematic experimentation to validate your hypothesis. So, step 2, formulation of a valid hypothesis. Well, once you've observed the natural phenomena, which they definitely have in those fields, you've got half of the hypothesis, because the naturally occurring phenomena you're observing is the thing that you want to find out why it's occurred. That's the thing you're studying. Why did that happen? Right? Now enter what the pseudo-scientists of those fields actually give you if you believe you're on a sphere. They'll give you a little story. Meanwhile, in an actual hypothesis, you have a presumed cause of the effect. So, your natural phenomena is your dependent variable. Your presumed cause of that phenomena is your independent variable. So let's call your dependent variable B and your independent variable A. A is your assumed cause of the effect, and B is the effect you are studying. Once you've got those two things, you can then formulate the other half of the hypothesis, which is a null, which is to say, if A, your presumed cause, not B, the effect. In other words, you vary your presumed cause and it doesn't cause the effect. Then you have a full, valid hypothesis. If my presumed effect A, then B, the effect. I vary this, it causes the thing I'm studying. And, including, if A, the thing I think causes this effect, not B, it does not cause the effect. So, you just need a phenomena and a presumed cause of it. That's all you need. Now, that simplistic description of the scientific method and the formulation of a hypothesis, has any of the people claimed to be scientists and giving you science for a sphere got that? Not an experiment, I haven't detailed that, just hypothesis construction. Have any of them got that?
No. And you would think that they would formulate the hypothesis. They have a claim, and people, I think, mix that up. They have a claim that a force of gravity creates a gas pressure gradient. Now, you would think that they would make an hypothesis out of that. We have a gas pressure gradient. We believe the cause of it is gravity. But they never do that because that would mean having to put gravity through the scientific method in the first place, the force of gravity. So they can't seem to. How can you create any hypothesis when your hypothesis will probably involve something that you've never proven anyway? You know what I mean? How do you do that?
Yeah, they don't even offer up a hypothesis. We've been asking that for about 3 years. Shout out to Godzilla37 who says, okay, you can start the show now. I am here. Thank you very much for the super chat. Also, there's 100 people watching, so I like to shout out people who have subscribed and shared the show dutifully to get us to 100 live viewers. If you have just joined the show, please share the show. It's 1 click or 2 clicks of the share button just below the video you're watching, and then you can disseminate this fantastic information offered up currently by Brian to a whole bunch of people who may not have been exposed to this information. It's the only way we get to them. Anyway.
Yeah.
Now, with what Brian said, oh, sorry.
Just 1 second. Just on the back of what John said earlier, just very quickly, what John said earlier, that I would have lost new people. Well, anyone new listening to what I was saying earlier, I might have been waffling on, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't speaking truth and I don't know about what I'm talking about. Everything I said was true.
Nobody was questioning that.
Yeah.
You weren't here when we did the intro. We did a big build up to the fact that in a couple of shows ago you were like, let's not just brush past the housekeeping, let's actually detail why the question is asked, how we've come to ask the question, and how the question isn't resolvable for a sphere Earth or proves a flat plane. So we started doing that, and then you got into the minutiae of the top level gas pressure gradient. You know, not necessarily focused on the antecedent-consequent relationship of the gas pressure in order to develop this detailed explanation within the gas pressure gradient that needed containment. That's why the question about how do you have gas pressure without a container is asked in the housekeeping.
Yeah, I got a bit carried away at myself.
No, it's okay. Doesn't mean you were wrong. Nobody was inferring that either, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying for new people, that doesn't mean that what I said was wrong, because everything I said was not.
Brian, you are ace. Don't you worry about anything. I understood everything you said.
I know you understand it, Neil. You're not brand new, though. Sorry,
indeed.
I cut down on you.
Okay. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating, we'll cover that in a minute, molten iron core, we all know what that is, at the centre of a presupposed, again, we'll cover R in a minute, spherical Earth? Molten iron core question. My bloody PC is flashing like nuts. I don't know, since I've updated OBS, I'm sorry if you're watching this and you've got epilepsy. The stream is flashing away like a crazy person. I don't know what to do about it. I've tried to adjust a few settings. My bad if it's flashing on your live stream.
When I was in geology class, they showed me a diagram with a cross-sectional cutout of Earth that showed the different layers. Are you saying that they're wrong or lying about that?
Well, they've got it beyond the Curie point, so they've got it as an explanation with a big backstory made up on the spot about a planet smashing into Earth at a glancing blow to deposit its molten iron core to extend the timeline of the molten iron core, which is still beyond the Curie point, developing magnetic fields. Well, that doesn't work unless it's self-perpetuating, because it's beyond the Curie point in their own rhetoric. Makes no sense even in their own rhetoric.
Plus,
If there was a molten
anybody
iron core,
validate?
wouldn't the surface of the Earth be all the same temperature, say?
What's your question?
If there was a molten iron core at such temperatures, wouldn't the surface of the globe be all relatively the same temperature?
I don't know. I would imagine that it would be absolutely bitterly cold because we'd be in a sky vacuum. You know, this whole idea of having a cushy little gas layer that's keeping us all nice and cosy. It's like, no, you're going to need containment for that. In reality, in a heliocentric world, the tiny little speck of dust they think the Earth is when described as a sphere in a sky vacuum wouldn't retain any of the gas. It would be bitterly cold. But there we go. I don't know if that's what you're asking, though. No? So yeah, it's just nonsense. It's based on a presupposition of a sphere Earth to begin with. And that's based on an R value that we've debunked. So any evidence of the R value, again, daily asked housekeeping question.
Why would you need an R value?
Because
you think it's a sphere.
I almost said every single claim to be globe-proof starts with a begging the question fallacy of a sphere Earth, but that doesn't quite stack up at the moment because that begging the question fallacy of a sphere Earth requiring the R value to beg that question was acquired by a flat Earth elevation angle. But we'll get to that later, John, if that's what you were driving at.
No, I just don't think most people really think about the idea of the radius and how it's necessary to be on a sphere. Chocolate pretty much answered it.
You just need to measure the distance to the horizon, isn't it?
How do they claim to have measured it?
You can't. They tell us it's all refracted standard based on R. Paradoxically speaking, they refract the R value capable horizon where measured into a non-geometric position with the R value that they can no longer measure from that position because they've refracted it. It's a paradox. You can't measure an R value from a geometric horizon to then say the value I got from the measured geometric point on Earth curve edge tangency has given me a value, R, that I can then imply has a derivative that's always in effect on a sphere Earth, 7/6 of that R value, that's standard refraction. Well, as soon as you do that, the measurement you got for the R value pushes the value that you measured into a different position. So you couldn't have measured it then. Like I say, it's a paradox. So we have debunked the R value.
Isn't it slightly different? Is it slightly different if they're going with Eratosthenes?
But that's sticks and shadows.
Mm-hmm. So
We'll
they're
get to
not
that.
using the horizon to derive the radius measurement.
Yeah, we'll get to
in
that.
that case, and people often
We'll get to that last because it ties into the most talked about subject matter at the moment, doesn't it? When you're measuring angles.
Yeah.
hint, hint. We'll get to that. I promise.
Officially, it's Al-Biruni. Officially, Al-Biruni took an angle from a high elevation to a geometric horizon. That is the official claim.
Step
Most
2, though.
people-
Damn you, Brian.
I'm just
Step 2.
stating that is officially that's what they claim.
Yeah, but Al
I know
Baruni, you
step
just
two,
said he
I
went
know
up a
had to
mountain
measure
to
the
get...
height of the mountain. I know, but I'm talking about if you were just a normal person, a normal everyday person, and you went to college and you were learning this, they would just teach you that. They wouldn't talk about Al Baruni taking a flat Earth measurement to the mountain or anything like that.
They certainly won't tell you that he had to assume the Earth was flat to calculate the angles to figure out how high his mountain was, to figure out how bent the Earth was. Has to assume it's flat first to get the angles for the height of the mountain, to determine the height of the mountain, to then reify the horizon and calculate the angle down to that as a geometric edge. It is a paradoxical cluster screw itself, isn't it?
Well, it's an acquisition of a radius value for a spherical Earth by way of utilisation of an angle measurement taken from a flat Earth. So in order for Al Baruni to derive the R that he's implying, he had to first measure a flat plane. Yes, we'll get to it later, though. That's what I was telling Brian off for, but you've summarised it so beautifully, Adam.
I better not say what I'm going to say then.
Well, we'll get to it last. There's only a couple more questions. Any evidence of the distance to the sun? And we'll go over why we ask it.
No, there's no evidence for the distance to the sun. No, it is an unattainable distance as far as we know.
But I've seen Red's rhetoric. Oh my God, I'm going to do it myself, aren't I? Oh, wow, this is interesting. It all seems to lead to this first question. I saw Red's rhetoric take a flat Earth elevation angle measurement, but we'll get to that later. And then insert an R value, which we just covered, to give him a distance that he's going to say is precise when you're looking at the sun, or in fact the moon. I mean, he claimed he could do both. So, given that they take an angle measurement and then insert an R value, I mean, doesn't that give you a distance to the sun?
Insert a R value? Where'd they get that from?
Oh, they got it from a geometric horizon that's now refracted, paradoxically speaking, not allowing them to measure or use the tangent point. Again, that'll bring us back to that first question. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Could I just add something to the sun thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
They need to have, what they used was to create what they call a 1 AU, which is one astronomical unit, different from the AUs we know, which is the Arwinian units. 1 AU, one astronomical unit, is the distance, the average distance of the globe Earth to the sun over a 12-month period within the heliocentric model. But that involves the two-way speed of light calculation, because it isn't a measurement. Most people are under the impression it's a measurement. It's not. It's a calculation that's based on 4 pre-assumptions and 2 averages. So that is what is required to get their distance to the heliocentric sun. But there is no one-way speed of light measurement. It was never measured and probably will never be measured.
Perfect.
So
we will just cover the last before the most important question, because every avenue at the moment seems to lead to the question that we get discussed for about 20 to 40 minutes on each show currently. So, any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? And then we will cover why we ask.
Well, they say that the stars moving, or what, overhead is the proof that it's actually us spinning.
Yeah, that's Coriolis deflection. So the claim is that Earth's turning beneath the stars relative to our position are stationary, and we're moving beneath them to cause that motion. That's Coriolis deflection, i.e. you turning beneath something on a non-inertial turning reference frame, in this instance claimed to be a globe Earth turning beneath the stars. Coriolis deflection. So if the Earth was turning beneath the stars, and we were spinning on a non-inertial turning reference frame for that effect to be true, then we would see helicopters drifting away once they entered that inertial reference frame, the frame of reference the stars are in. So, to see Coriolis effect in the stars, we'd have to have Coriolis effect in anything else that's not attached to the non-inertial turning reference frame, and we don't see that effect. Drones can hover. Nothing could hover. if we had Coriolis effect, everything would drift. It's claimed to be the case that we do have drift. Neil deGrasse Tyson examples a ball leaving the claim to be turning reference frame and drifting. That would be a not actual deflection observed from you on the stand as you turn beneath the ball. You and the goalposts turn beneath the ball. That is visually observed, according to him, as a not actual deflection caused by Earth turning beneath the ball. So it curves through the goal. Well, that's deflection. Oh, my God. Go on.
I was going to say, I've seen a YouTuber named Simon Dan demonstrate that there was no deflection, and he said that you and your reference frames were ruined.
So we can congratulate Dan for demolishing the heliocentric globe Earth claim that they have two reference frames causing not actual deflection known as Coriolis effect, as you observe things in an inertial reference frame drifting from your vantage point on a non-inertial turning reference frame claimed to be Earth. That's two reference frames required to make the claim. The claim is globe Earth has Coriolis effect. We all know that's the claim. He says reference frames ruined. Okay, I'll accept that. No worries. Thank you very much, Dan. We completely agree. So Simon Dan's now a flat earther, is he? He accepts that we don't have two reference frames in order to make this claim of globe Earth Coriolis. Kudos, Dan. Sing it, brother. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline? So Al Biruni's going to measure the horizon, right? And he's got an assumption that the horizon is the leading edge of a sphere, a tangent point. And from his vantage point up on the mountain, the Earth that is beneath him is curving away at a rate of 8 inches per mile squared. That is his assumption when he's up the mountain. When he's at the bottom of the mountain, what does he do there, Adam, before he's gone up the mountain and assumed the Earth's curving away and that the leading edge of this geometric tangent point-based ball is the horizon he's looking at from the top of the mountain? What's he do to get the height of the mountain?
But to get it, he wants to get it accurate so that his next measurement has any validity. So he needs to use some geometric reference point, and the point he uses, I think, is water, and across a flat plane. And he uses a long, flat, straight baseline to take two angles from, and the distance between the 2 points on that flat baseline allows him to use trigonometry to calculate the height of the mountain off the flat baseline.
I see. So he measures an angle along a flat Earth, moves a bit closer, measures the angle again, and uses a bit of trig and calculates the height. Very simple stuff if you've got a flat plane to do it.
Yeah, he uses that knowledge that the baseline is a straight line and therefore has a relation. Therefore, the 2 points have a relationship to the top of the mountain geometrically.
I see.
A right angle is, funnily enough, here we've still got a right angle here. The right angle is at the base of the mountain, where obviously you can't go to. It's in the centre and at the bottom of the mountain. But there's your right angle for the geometry that he's using off of that flat baseline for him to then use the angles he's measuring up to the mountain.
Right, but there are instances where you haven't got a piece of rock in your way at the 90. For instance, if you were doing celestial navigation, you'd have a 90 degree below the star along a similar baseline.
Yeah.
And you can travel to that position. In fact, that's very useful, isn't it?
Well, if you're in a boat in the sea, yeah.
But in order to carry out that process, you're going to acquire it by first measuring an elevation angle.
Oh, yeah.
What's an elevation angle?
It's an angle.
It's an angle.
Go on, bro.
I was just going to say that it's an angle line that requires a horizontal baseline and an absolute vertical at 90 degrees.
It's, yeah.
So if we had coordinates, we'd be working on a flat bottom of the box, in essence.
Yeah. Got to be the triangle we're creating to measure our elevation angle, whether it is the surface of the Earth, or whether it's a parallel to the surface. But the important thing is it's straight and parallel. Whether it is exactly sat on the seas for celestial navigation purposes, not important, your altitude, other unless you're taking a dip correction. But the purpose of all this is to generate another straight line which is parallel to the surface.
So, in essence, go on, Brian. You go first.
Thank you, Nathan. I was just going to say, as long as you're creating an absolute horizontal, you have to create a 90. So that's why you do the dip and height of light correction with a sextant from a boat, because you're using the horizon mirror pointing it at the visible horizon. Whereas with a bubble sextant or with an artificial horizon, you're just creating a horizontal, an imagined horizontal, basically.
Sure, but when I said a coordinate system, let's say for the sake of argument, you've got a guy on a boat. It's a aircraft carrier, and he's holding a sextant, and it's very choppy, and he's rocking it back and forth and getting it as good as he possibly can. And then somebody on the boat says, "I'll go directly above you in this aeroplane, and I will measure the exact same thing with a bubble sextant directly above your position at your zenith." So we'll have two. You'll do it on the boat, I'll do it in the air. But once they've done it with the guy at the boat's zenith, they both have the same parallel line running from their zenith down to the sea, through the boat, through the plane, up to the sky. So when they measure, both of them, the GP of whichever star they're sighting, or the sun, they're both going to get the same 90-degree along a box parallel to their zenith at the GP of the star. Now, higher up, lower down, it doesn't make any difference. They're parallel. Again, if the GP was over the edge of a sphere Earth curving away from them, both of them with a parallel position, i.e. they're both on the same line up from the ground, they've both got the same zenith, the boat and the plane. If it was a sphere Earth, then the position would have drastically curved away from the plane and less so from the boat. They both get different measurements. But in reality, the way they plot it out, the way they actually do it in celestial navigation, is both will get the same reading because they'll both have a parallel line between them and the star they're measuring, with a flat baseline between them for both. It's just the baseline in the aeroplane travels through the air. But it's still flat and can still be flat, parallel with the one on the ground, because the ground's flat, and only works if that is the case. So it doesn't matter if you're using a bubble sextant or using the horizon and doing dip correction. If you are and you're both at the exact same location coincidentally, let's use a hot air balloon rather than a plane having to circle. The hot air balloon goes up a couple of 1,000 feet, uses a bubble sextant to measure the exact same thing, and what do you know? It all works out with the exact same 90 to the exact same GP along the exact same parallel along the exact same flat plane. Works every time. Earth must be flat for celestial navigation. Celestial navigation is a proof the Earth is flat. It cannot be done on a curved Earth. You cannot acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline. If you wanted flat Earth silver bullet, this is it. Elevation angle, measurement, proves Earth is flat.
Well, you don't have to use a sextant either, do you? Didn't Eratosthenes measure an elevation angle?
Yeah, let's go through it. Actually, who's it? Somebody else brought up. Was it you who actually brought this up? Because somebody else actually brought this up, and I told them no.
No, it was Elijah.
It was Eli.
It's always Eli.
Yes.
Go, Eli, go.
But my sound is horrendous right now. I'm riding a bike, so.
Go, John, go.
All right. Well, from the story, from history that we're taught, that there was a well in, I think, Siam, that at a certain day of the year, the sun would be directly overhead and cast no shadow into that well. And there was an obelisk, I think, 500 miles north of that, and the shadow would cast at a certain degree angle, and he used that angle to measure the radius of Earth.
Angle? Hold on. If you're saying he's using it to measure the radius of Earth, that means that the outside edge of the surface that he's getting that angle from would be curved then, wouldn't it?
No, it can't be curved or it's not an angle. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's the same problem. So you're saying, I'm going to get a flat Earth angle measurement and then infer a radius curved line along the bottom of the angle I've just measured straight. Yeah, that's not going to work.
I don't guess it would.
How did he even know it was a sphere that he was getting a radius for in the first place?
Because he measured an angle on a flat Earth, chocolate.
Oh yeah,
No,
that checks out.
No, he knew he believed it was a globe because of his chords, like Aristotle and who's that other guy?
I mean Pythagoras.
Well, Aristotle
he liked balls. Thought balls
Aristotle
were the perfect
because
shape.
Aristotle had already assumed that eclipses were caused by the Earth casting a shadow on the moon. And it was curved, so he came to the conclusion that, well, must be that the Earth is a ball. And so people like Eratosthenes ran with that, if they were even real. So
Quick shout out to,
themselves.
hold on, just a couple of quick shout outs to Sensual Goat. Love it. All of this sextant talk makes me feel very nautical. Very good.
Well,
hold on, just one more.
That was better than anything 10th has ever done. I'm sorry.
That was subtle.
That was good.
Yeah, that was good, Samuel. Top marks.
That
was
deserves
brilliant.
a reread, that one.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Good.
Okay,
Yeah.
shout out to Theo Megawerty. He says, how many tangents can dance on the head of a pin? Epic. Thank you very much, both of you, for the super chats. I really appreciate your support.
That's not even close to the best. Everyone knows goats are.
Hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. Just because there's some logic that's getting messed up here. If Aristotle claimed that the shadow was caused by Earth being a sphere and getting in front of the moon, that would mean that the surface is curved, so Eratosthenes wouldn't be able to measure an angle to measure Earth's radius. So one of those two can't be true at the same time, can they?
That's correct.
I think the issue here, other than the amount of assumptions it's laden with, the sticky one for them is it's incumbent on parallel sun rays, isn't it? Because that's their straight lines, that's their parallels, the two parallels. Because he's assuming 2 points on a ball, 1 point is the 0 point, and then the cyan is the other point. But both the sets of sun rays are parallel, and that's why you're then able, with that knowledge, to determine the shadow distance. But it requires the assumption that light coming off of a ball emits parallel sun rays, which it doesn't.
But wouldn't he have to measure an
Can
angle to that?
Can I destroy that in a minute?
Well, I just want to know how would he get the angle to assert that the rays are parallel?
But see, that's the thing. They took an angle line to something in the sky. And of course they used the surface of the Earth. But the only way they can transform that into a globe is to take that angle, right, and bring the same exact angle to the equatorial plane. As then they do have a flat baseline, which they require. So that required them to assert that the sun was very, very, very big and very, very, very far away. Remember I talked about the two-way speed of light earlier. That is a calculation based on 4 pre-assumptions and 2 averages. It's not a measurement. The speed of light was never measured. They need they need the two-way speed of light to be a measurement, which it isn't.
So
And
you're
they
saying
need-
that
go on.
you're saying the equatorial plane, I would have to dig a hole to the center of Earth to get an accurate, or to get an angle?
No, yeah, but see, there you go. They took actual elevation angles off of an actual flat Earth, but the only way they can transform that into a globe version is they need, right, the sun to be very big and very far away, which involves a two-way speed of light calculation, not measurement. Speed of light was never measured. And they then assert that the angle they get off the top of the surface of their sphere, right, it can be transformed to the center of that sphere, and then they use the equatorial plane as their flat baseline. Completely ignoring, that way they get to completely ignore the curved surface. And what have we dealt with? One second, please.
Okay.
What have we dealt with? What have we dealt with for months now? Them avoiding the surface. Because that's what this is all about, them avoiding the surface. I brought out a video a while ago about the two-way speed of light and about how it was such a heap of nonsense and about the distance of the sun and all that. And I got ridiculous amounts of hate. Why? Because it kills their claim. It's all connected. Come on.
Right. 2 slides in Master B will show Brian's point precisely. Let me know when.
Yeah, I had him up while he was saying it. Good interruption. He was supporting you with the slides, Brian, that was all. But yeah, perfect. So the only place this actually works is along this very faded grey line that works to the actual centre point when they have an equatorial plane for the angle. They just justify the angle when they put multiple planes at multiple elevations with light travelling in parallel from a very, very distant sun that Brian's just described. Yeah, great slides. Thank you, 10th. Did you want to go through them? Although I've just stole you.
Yeah, I just want to say, if you show the first one as well, it covered your point about the plane being directly above the boat. And the second one actually shows a plane over a boat, which is a black and white version. You can just ignore that ball. See that ball, that sphere? That's not reality. The plane is using a straight line, horizontal. The surface of the Earth is a plane, horizontal, and then they decide to stick a ball there and then say, well, the only way it works is if we transpose that straight plane to the center, as Brian was saying, the equatorial plane, so the angles can match. So everything that's the ball is not there. That's just made up.
Right, just before you go on. So if these parallel lines, although I haven't got enough screen real estate to actually show it, but we'll assume that they, come out to here just for the sake of diagram. That means that the point that you're actually calculating for would be along this line marked as celestial horizon. In other words, as we've just detailed, you're in the centre of a rock to make it work on a sphere, but this is an angle measurement, i.e. this hasn't actually been measured, and it's going to be measured miles beyond the sphere Earth parameters in terms of acquisition of a GP to the baseline that you've got 90 degree at. So the 90 degree that you're trying to acquire with all three of these parallel stupid lines with a sphere that's redundant at this point don't get you to the surface of the sphere. They get you to the surface of this line through the middle of the sphere. Now, so what have you got to do to believe you're on a sphere? Well, you've got to believe that you can take the angle measurement from the centre and that the angle measurement's going to be taken out to an infinitely extending plane wherever it meets and dissects the GP of the star at 90 degree. We haven't got any of that. Like 10th just says, this is useless. The sphere bit doesn't do anything anymore. What you're actually using is a flat plane to get the angle, and you're not standing in the middle of a ball. You are standing on the surface. Well, when doing this, which one relates to the surface? Is it this one that you haven't used? No, it's this line. That represents the surface. It's the only way to do it.
I have to disagree with you, because I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would say that the first thing you have to do is pre-assume that the two-way speed of light is a measurement and it's real, and that gives you a big, huge sun at a big, big distance away, and that the inverse square law doesn't exist.
Yeah, but
because without that...
But they got to that further along the chain of the history of heliocentrism. You're not... Christian Huygens' assumptions that you're describing with that 1/2-way speed of light that they don't have, well, when you describe one of those assumptions was Christian Huygens. That's in recent history. So as much as you say they must start there, yeah, they've got to start by measuring flat Earth elevation angles. Let's get it clear.
Yeah, but they need to have parallel lines. See, this is why you can't really trust history too much. To have parallel light rays from the sun, it requires the sun to be a massive size and at a massive distance. And it also requires the light coming off the sun to not adhere to the inverse square law of light. And the only way they got the big massive sun at a big distance away. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree with you because in this methodology, when transposed from flat plane angle measurements to spheres with all the complex mass that goes along with it, and isn't done when they're actually doing this methodology to navigate, in that process, you've said that they've got to have a two-way speed of light to get it to the assumptive values, and I said Christian Huygens, but they don't. They actually take it to an infinite distance when they do this off a celestial, what do they call it? The celestial plane in the middle? Is that what they call it? Celestial plane?
Equatorial.
Equatorial plane. When they do it with an equatorial plane, Brian, they're doing it to an infinite distance.
Yeah, but where do they get these infinite distances from? Where are they getting these distances from?
That comes later. That's my point. So you well, I'm just saying it. That was a telling chuckle. I love it.
This is their reversey, isn't it? This is their you'll fall off the edge moment. Where they gain attackers, well, what's the height to your star? Well, all their heights are infinite. Why they ask us how high are our stars? Because theirs are a conceptual height.
Well, that's a misnomer, isn't it? Infinite distance. That's a misnomer.
That's what I was going to say.
Nathan, 2 more slides to show your point about.
We don't calculate it as we've demonstrated. It's accepted that it's an apparent position, and the way in which celestial navigation is done means we don't need to assign a height to it. The way they're doing it, they don't need to because they assign everything to Earth curvature, but they do, to get around it mathematically, do actually assign a figure of infinity. So we make an honest disclaimer that it's not calculated and it's just random, whereas they put it to infinity, and they have to for it for the mass to work, to transfer all of the mass onto the shape of the surface. It has to go to infinity.
Yeah, got your first slide.
I'd just like to say.
Yeah, slide you got up now, and the one following will prove the point you were saying. So the sun, it has to have a zenith over a place on the earth with a vertical to a GP, which is a perpendicular right angle, and you can see the sun is way out there. And on the second picture, if you go to the next one, you'll see that it's impossible the way they have. That's why everything on the previous 2 slides that's in the shape of a sphere is not even real. You can't have an elevation angle from a curved baseline.
Brian, did you want to get the last word in?
Don't
yeah.
that slide. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to state, Nathan, I have further disagreement with you because you're stating that the two-way speed of light is a recent thing, when technically the size and distance of basically the sun being very big and a big distance away, that actually comes from Kepler's analemma, which is back in the 1700s or something like that before. So it's not that recent. That's where that all started with.
But that doesn't actually give you a value, does it? That's just for scaling. That you can apply that to scale once you've got values to scale with, but you don't have that at that point when Kepler's laying down those scaling values.
But they have to use Kepler's analemma. That's the average distance of the heliocentric globe to the heliocentric sun. The average distance between those two throughout a year. That is the baseline of the two-way speed of light calculation.
But that comes after the assumption once the distances are set with Christian Huygens' assumption.
Yeah, without Huygens, you can't use the transit, can you, to calculate? And you've got it's
I'm going to stand my ground on this one, but I'm going to round out the live show and we'll get into the after show. I like how we're getting into high-level heliocentric discussions, though, Brian. I love this. This is ace.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, smashed the PayPal link and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, however, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Fraction which you have to, because you can't actually make diagrams and geometry with bent lines, even though in geometrically they are. So you go by the visual standard, which is a flat plane. Works perfectly.
You want to laugh though, because I think it was on Brandon's show, or it might have been on Gem Pandas. They were saying you have to have an imagination to understand the science.
That's what the guy
Like
said
that.
yesterday. The guy was like, don't you have the capabilities to use abstractions? I'm like, what? I've got to take this to the abstract to understand it? No, I'm just measuring an angle. I don't need to abstract anything from anything when I just take an angle measurement.
Was that after he said you just have to imagine where you get the tangent from?
Yeah, exactly.
That he put on a horizontal plane, that we were like, why do you have the sphere underneath this horizontal plane if you don't need the sphere?
Exactly. Yeah, I trimmed a couple of those bits
To
out.
remind you of what's really important. This sphere.
Oh.
Abstract.
Or as a table, a nightstand for the horizontal plane, right?
No, it's like, no, but it's showing you the geometry, right? Like, oh, how does this work, this process? Yeah, it works perfectly on a flat plane. So we have to put the ball underneath there to remind you, like, oh yeah, and the Earth is still a ball, though, right? That's what it's there for.
Pathetic, isn't it? But when we ask them, well, why have you got the ball underneath? Well, because of the tangent point. What tangent point? The one that we got from the horizon that's refracted. They don't say that.
Are you
obviously.
denying? Are you denying tangents?
Yeah, pathetic attempts they've had so far. Okay, Adam, I know you wanted to cover one of the slides. The 10,000, is it you presenting this?
Yeah, well, I've got the one 10 had, and it's just to address what I'm saying about this point to infinity. If you look at what's on screen now, the observer measures elevation angle A through to the horizon. They translocate it back to the parallel to horizon to the center of the Earth. If you look at this simple diagram, you can see that angles A and B are not the same, yet they have to be. So the only way to resolve that is to push the sun out, say out to infinity, so that the difference between angle A and B is still there, but so negligible because it's so far away that they become closer and closer. That's their little non-reality flim-flam. If you see that diagram exemplifies it quite well. You see how far the sun has to be away for angles A and B to be equal. There is no point where angles A and B can ever be equal because it's a real position. But if you move it to infinity, then the difference is 0 because it's
But when the transposition actually takes place, the get around, i.e. the A angle, is a justification for the actual angle, which is B. So the B angle, if drawn accurately, which it isn't in this, with a sphere Earth included, would have parallel to the horizon extending out as the equatorial plane, this blue ball in the middle completely redundant, and then an infinitely expanded out celestial sky that you're actually getting with the sun in it. So the angle's measured along the parallel to the horizon line. The ball isn't used, and the angle's got to the item that you're seeing. So you go, okay, well, which bits are we actually using? Well, the line, flat, straight, parallel to horizon. That's what you're actually measuring. They put it in the middle of a rock, making it impossible to measure, but that's what you're measuring. It's just the only bit that's relevant is the plane bit, not the sphere bit. It's not used. The parallel bit is just a get around. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, I thought you were finished, Nathan.
The spheres for imagination support. That's what it's
yeah.
for.
He's right. I just got to say, like, I see these kind of diagrams, and they're like we have here, and they're a trick because angle A and angle B are not the same. Because they have to, if you look at where they have A and the angle line, let's say between the two, or the angle, I can't remember what the name of it is, that little curved line between the two, the horizontal and the angle line. Where they have A, they've pushed it out from where the observer is. So they have to widen the angle to make it match B, because the sun is right there.
I see what you're saying. What you're saying
Yeah.
is if you push it further out along the line, so from observer, I'll just draw it on my, for the audience's benefit, from observer to horizon, right? If you look at where B is, it's, I don't know, let's call that an inch. I don't know what type of telly you're watching on, it doesn't matter. But let's call that an inch. Well, why is A 6 inches out? Well, because then the line is a bit longer. And it's not so obvious about how different it is. Because further out, it's a bit longer, right? Well, they're different angles. That's the point. But it's not so noticeable if you push A a bit further out, right, Brian?
Yeah, exactly.
Mathematically, there is never a point where the angles, like I said, are the same. You can only get it to a point where the difference is negligible. But it's geometry. They're in different positions. So they can never be exactly the same because they're not fundamentally. Yeah. All you can do is mitigate. And I'm saying that's why it has to go to such distances, because it's the only way in which you can excuse angle A and B, which you can see are different because they're separated by R. Yeah, so they have to be different. So the only way to make the difference is to move the sun so far away that the differential means you can call A is equal to B.
Well, sorry for cutting in on you, Adam. Sorry, I apologise. I'm jumping in a bit too fast. If you brought the sun, right, down to where it says horizon, right, from the observer, that would be 0 for the observer, but it wouldn't be 0 for B.
Not until you push it out to infinity, and then it will be, because it's so far away, it'll be virtually parallel.
No, because the problem is that if you push that out, the observer still can't see below where it says that line that says horizon. That is the 0 point for the observer. So if you can push it out if you want, but it won't change that.
I'm talking about mathematically, how to resolve it, not reality, not what it would do if you were on a ball looking over it. I'm talking about how you resolve it mathematically.
Or you don't.
It's fine.
Or you don't, as the case may be. It's never the same angle. Even at an infinite distance, Adam has made it absolutely clear 3 times. It will never, ever, under any circumstances, be the same angle. It can't be.
AutoCAD syntax error?
No, not syntax error. It's just not a matching angle. So you could draw it out, but A and B are never going to be the same, even if you push the distance, that sun, as far as you can possibly push it. There'll still be a different angle. But what Adam's saying is, in order to resolve that issue, if you make it infinitely far away, you make the difference infinitely negligible.
Yeah. Infinitely negligible. That sounds self-contradicting. That's weird.
Not real.
Such thing. We're talking about concepts.
Right?
There is no... What's infinite? What's infinite? What's
small.
infinite? What does that mean? It's a concept. It's a convention.
Amounts of.
It's just a convention.
Yeah, right? Yeah,
Their
so
convention.
the maximized minimalization.
Yes, maximizing minimalization. I like it. They've taken what we have and what we measure into a model, put us in the middle of the rock, but said, no, that does technically match what you measure on the surface when you draw it on a sphere. Number one, it doesn't. And you go, well, if they point that out, that's embarrassing. Well, in this example, the distance to the measured body, the sun in this example, is infinite. So it's negligible. There's nothing in it, is what they would say. That's Adam's point.
It's another one of those. It's within 5% times, isn't it?
Not.
So
Well,
how is saying if this?
Sorry.
How is saying if this, then this equal to, you know, a positive claim that could be verified? Like, if that's their argument against, no, we just measure on a flat plane, coming at me, well, if this, then is not good enough.
What I'll try and translate what I think you're trying to say. You're saying that if we have to start with a flat Earth elevation angle in both instances, and then they come back at us after the fact with the justification for how they can take that flat Earth angle measurement and make it work with the sphere, then what's the point in discussing their justification after the fact? They've already lost. They've already taken an angle from a flat Earth.
Yeah, just because it seems flat, measures flat, calculates flat, doesn't mean it's flat. It's still a sphere.
Yeah, you could tell it's a sphere because it measures so flat.
Or just because I've measured my position accurately using a flat plane doesn't necessarily logically follow that I'm on a flat plane. That's what the guy told us yesterday. Like, he told us that when you do celestial navigation and you measure it on the flat baseline, it doesn't logically follow that that's the actual position. It's like, that's the reason you're doing it. But in his mind, because the flat plane that you've just measured in order to follow out that process at all isn't a sphere, then it doesn't work. Now, this is where there's a nice, concise description of their confusion currently when they try and level celestial navigation don't work because it's flat Earth and you're just a flat earther and you don't get it and you're wrong. It's like, no, celestial navigation does work, and when you understand it and detail it, you tell us all about how it works on a flat plane. You'll justify slapping a flat plane on a redundant sphere, and then when it doesn't work on the sphere, you'll tell us it doesn't logically follow, even though that's precisely what you do. You use a flat plane to measure the surface and navigate around on it.
We can, we do, we must think of the Earth as a sphere. That doesn't mean it really is a sphere, but we don't have to work on the really is level.
That doesn't apply. When we work, even if we worked at the not really is level of a sphere, we couldn't acquire the elevation angle measurement. This is a beautiful argument because it defies what you've just said. No, in both instances, the really is level that we're going to work at to do any of this is going to measure a flat plane, Anthony. There's no starting with not really is level. There's starting with flat plane. It's the only way forward. And that's why they're all slapping flat planes on spheres at the moment. It's nuts. I was editing the video yesterday with Virus, and in a way I couldn't quite believe my ears. All he's doing is arguing within the context of the flat plane. So long as it's got a sphere that's redundant underneath it, he's happy. It's like, what we're doing is on the flat plane bit, though, and he's telling us all about how it works on that flat plane. It's nuts.
And the same thing with the guy afterwards.
Yeah,
he didn't have a response. But I asked him, why do you need the sphere? What's the sphere doing over here underneath this flat plane that you have over here that you need to measure these angles?
Exactly. They go through the angles. They tell us how the angles work. They tell us how on that flat plane it's going to work and how the angles will get them to the GP and how that's how you are navigating. Until you say, well, that's all done flat and navigated flat and you've arrived at your destination thanks to the flatness. They go, well, no, that logically doesn't follow. What? The celestial navigation process we just went through together, and you told me how it worked on the flat plane? The only bit that wasn't covered is the sphere underneath the flat plane. It was totally redundant. It didn't have any use.
Now you just got to take it to the abstract, Nathan. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's what he told me. When I was like, you were asking him, what's the sphere for then? He's like, are you incapable of moving to the abstract? What? So after I've done my flat Earth measurements and I've moved around on the flat plane and I've got successfully to my destination, really I should take a moment to think, holy shit, there was a sphere underneath this flat plane we've just moved along.
So the sphere is abstract, basically. Thanks.
It's where it exists. The sphere Earth religion has taken an idea that only exists in maths and projected it out through reification and models onto your actual world. So most people think they are actually standing on a sphere when it's not possible. You can't stand on a sphere Earth. It's measured, navigated, flat.
Can I ask you a question, Nathan? When do we need tangent curves? When do we ever require those to do anything?
We don't.
Well, if we call it a tangent plane or a tangent curve, then you instantly invoke a sphere, right? So it's begging the question. As long as we're begging the question, they're fine with it.
No, we've debunked it. We've debunked it, Anthony. Black Swan. They haven't got a tangent anymore.
You're missing me point. Please just let me make it. We don't ever require tangent curves because there is no need for them in reality. Yet they constantly require tangent planes. So as soon as they state we have a tangent plane, they're automatically, as I said to Virus yesterday, automatically relinquishing their claim of a sphere. If you can't do it on a sphere, if you're basically stating if you need a tangent plane, that means you can't do it on the curved surface of your sphere. So you're relinquishing your plane.
Yeah, exactly. Once they start detailing how it works on a tangent plane, they're essentially detailing how it works on a flat Earth, not on a sphere anymore.
Can you go to the next two slides, Nathan?
Okay. Horizon coordinate system.
Yeah, you can see here that, I mean, you can look at this many ways, but obviously that's a plane where the angle's being taken from. And they got a sphere underneath it, and obviously you got the celestial sphere somewhere in here. But it's not necessary. They never use it. They never use it. And the only time they want to say they use it is an equatorial plane, which no one's there using it. Go to the next slide. So from a Navy site, this is an elevation angle, and you don't see no ball underneath this. And that's a 90. That's a right angle. That's perpendicular. There are no curved lines.
Hold on.
In celestial.
It's in black and white. He is at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth doing this, though, isn't he?
No, he's on the surface near an airfield.
Yeah, that's where elevation angles get measured on the surface, not at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth after the acquisition of them from the surface. That would be acquiring them angled like shown in this picture from a flat plane. That's not going to be shoved into the centre because you couldn't have measured it if you were in the middle of a rock. A flat plane running through that rock, I might add.
He's actually on the equator, Nathan, looking down into the ground, vertically down into the ground, and creating his angle from being on the equator looking down. So that horizontal line is his vertical, isn't it?
No, the point he's measuring to depict the GP of the star that he's imagining in this photo isn't looking down towards a geometric physical sphere edge horizon tangent point. Quite the contrary. He's making a triangle, not a curved baseline.
Don't say 90.
A circle of equal altitude.
Yeah.
Taken the angle measurement from where he is to the star, and he's calculated that distance in nautical miles, and then he's drawn a circle from the GP of the star around to demonstrate that to me is exactly what a circle of equal altitude is doing. You'll then try and take another star, wouldn't he, and intersect, to then calculate where he actually is. That to me, you look at that and you can conflate that and say, that's what they do in the centre of the ball, but it's not. The centre of their ball is underneath him, isn't it? It's got that circle, and that triangle's got nothing to do with the one they put it in.
Right, and this can only translate into a three-dimensional box. It doesn't in any way, shape or form translate onto a sphere, hence Brian's point about them having to draw out great big massive expanses of flat area on top of a sphere, and then argue all day about the single point that it's only got in relation to the sphere, the tangent. Like, we've debunked that with the black swan. So the only connection between the sphere, useless that it is, beneath this flat plane we're all talking about how it's used, that's relating to the surface is the point we debunked with the black swan. That's the only point they're connected. A point debunked by the black swan.
And again, he's demonstrating you need a straight R value for your circle of equal altitude. If you were trying to even imagine that onto a ball, then it has to be a curved, bendy R, doesn't it? But he's clearly demonstrating that it's a translocation of the distance from the GP, and then you take a straight line parallel to the surface to calculate that circle of equal altitude, and then you know you're somewhere on that circle.
Well, hold on a sec. The tangent plane only touches the sphere at your feet.
That is not a tangent plane. That is a flat surface. If they want tangent planes, they've got one at the GP of the star, one at the observer, and the surface is curved between the two. But the Navy's demonstrating it's flat.
What I was going to say is that a tangent plane is an oxymoron. That doesn't make sense.
Tangent curve is. A curve to a tangent makes a tangent to a curve makes sense, yeah. But I don't know. I typed it into Google. What's a tangent curve? I don't. You can have a tangent to it.
I mean, I understand what they mean by tangent plane. So, yeah, you can call it an oxymoron. But...
Well, Nathan, I got a few more if you want to go there. Comment.
Sorry.
How many planes are on a sphere?
None.
How many planes are on a sphere?
None.
So how can you have a plane on a sphere to have a tangent?
You can't.
To anything?
You can't.
Imagine it.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make. Tangent curves don't exist in geometry. Why? Because they're not necessary. Why do tangent planes exist? And why is it that our opposition say the tangent planes can be infinite in size? Why? Because it's necessary for reality.
Okay, I've got your next slide up with the 2-star.
Yeah, that's the.
Can I make a quick comment, please? The only reason for a curved tangent to even exist is because of the conjuration of terrestrial refraction. That's the only.
This is my point. People are using this phrase. What does it mean? A curved tangent. I don't. This is a made up. What is it? People keep using it. What does it mean to them? What's a curve?
I don't think anyone says it. No one calls anything
It's a straight tangent in an R-based refraction situation.
Okay, can we discuss this chapter 10
curved
through
tangent?
slides? So I've got the second slide up with the 2 stars and the boat triangulating
Yeah.
its position.
So here's a 2 circle of equal altitudes where they cross each other. So the fix is either one of those 2 spots that you can see here. This is from the same Navy thing. Go to the next slide. Here's the first elevation angle from that boat prior to doing the second one to getting 2 circle of equal altitude. So there's the GP of the star to the ship there. As you can see here, the next slide, you see the sextant operator and the person who takes down the notes. As you can clearly see, they're at the center of the Earth doing this. Or no, they can't be at the center of the Earth. Oh, they're doing from the surface of the Earth, which is flat. Sorry, little joke there. Next slide. This is what the problem is. They have a right angle, elevation angle, and they got to make it work on the curved surface. So that's why they have tangent planes all the time, because it
By
wouldn't work.
far, that's the funniest illustration I've ever seen.
Done by them, Chocolate, not by me.
I know.
But wait till the next one. And yet they'll go and do a circle thinking it's a globe and put 3 circle of equal altitudes with a 90 degree, a right angle. Like that could ever work like that. Give me a break. Next slide. Here's 1 circle of equal altitude mirroring the 3 that they put on the globe. See that little box? That's a 90. That's a straight baseline. Can never work on the globe. And you had 3 of them in the slide before on the globe. How can that be? Embarrassing to be a baller these days. I'm done.
Thank you, Tenth. That was epic. So just one last bit of clarity, because we were discussing it the most. This is a black and white picture of a man dragging out a bit of string to show how he would gain an area of equal altitude. This is the measurement of a flat baseline, otherwise known as an elevation angle. Last slide, the 10th head up, is the same thing but depicted in a way that makes it more obvious, with a 90 degree at the GP of the star. S1 is a star. O is your measured position. So this is where you're getting the angle, and this is the circle that you're trying to derive in order to form 3 circles. Now where the 2 cross, so in this example, you've got 2 stars being measured, both with 90 degree. So this entire area, which could be thousands of miles, must be flat to do the measurement with 90 degree at the base of each star. And when you move on to 3 stars, instead of there being only 2 possible locations that you could be where both of the circles intersect, position 1, you could be there, or position 2, you could be there. If they're both out in open ocean, you don't know. So you might have to do a 3rd location, which is what this shows, albeit with a bit of disdain in Tenth's voice, because according to him, this blue circle suddenly makes it a sphere Earth. I just see this as a vast area of equal elevation. Why? Well, because it's got lots of 90 degrees drawn on it. So for these 90 degrees to be drawn, all of this must be an area that's the exact same flat, level surface. And of course, here we are with flat level baselines coming out to the edges of each of these circles, meaning instead of 2 locations that are possible, as in the last example, the 3rd star gives you your fix. That's where you are. Flat Earth required. So what do the globe earthers do? Well, they say, well, this area is this great big plane that's stuck on a sphere underneath that we're not using. Why aren't we using it? Well, because none of these stars would give us 90 degrees. Reciprocating zenith angles? No, then they'd be coming in at different angles, wouldn't they? Then we wouldn't get 90 degrees. None of this would work anymore. You have to use a flat plane. And they do. And that's why we end up with hilarious pictures like this, where they show a teeter-tottering 90 degree. What about the star over here? What are you going to do then? Is that going to have a 90 degree meeting for this one that's in the middle of mid-air with a sphere beneath it? It's just nonsense. It doesn't work on a sphere. I'm done.
We get back to the tangents, the curved tangents. Who said that?
Nobody. I think it was a misunderstanding.
I said, yeah, but I said that tangent curves don't exist in geometry because they're not necessary. But tangent planes do, because they are necessary. When you're dealing with reality, you're dealing with a flat plane.
Yeah. Sorry, I caught the conversation late. I thought a baller said tangent curves.
That's what I heard, John. I don't know what a tangent curve is.
Well, let me explain. If you're saying
it doesn't exist.
Let me just explain why it's being used.
It's a paradox.
It is a paradox, but let me just explain.
Yeah.
Right. If this boat in this diagram is measuring to the GP of this star, and the assertion is that the ground is actually curved, well then the line, which is the radius value, suddenly has a bend to it. So we end up with all kinds of crazy, nonsensical, non-existent geometry being asserted to get around the fact that this is a straight baseline, because they think it isn't, even though that's what you're using. So you end up with a bent, curved line in place of this straight one.
So they're claiming that's a tangent curve.
No one's claiming that tangent curves exist, Adam. I just said, imagine that we were on a globe, but we kept believing we were on a flat Earth. Then we would need tangent curves because we wouldn't be able to deal with reality. The fact that they need tangent planes is like an admission every time they say it. We use a tangent plane. It means they're relinquishing that it's a globe. Because if they require a tangent plane, it's because we don't require tangent curves because there's never a necessity for it. But they have a necessity for tangent planes. Why? Because it's flat.
It's fine as long as you made that phrase up to take the mic. I understand it now. I thought they were actually claiming they got tangent curves as if that solved their problem.
See, Adam's been here the whole time. I just come in, I thought somebody said tangent curves. I mean, legitimately. And that doesn't even make sense.
If we lived on a curving surface and how we saw were through curved theoretical light rays, then why don't we just have math that expresses that then?
Because Earth's flat.
The reason, Elijah, is that they have a phenomenal world which they want to interpret, and they make models to interpret it. And then somewhere along the line, a light goes off in their head, whether erroneously or not, that this model that I created is actually reality itself. So they reify their model into existence.
Which model
is
that?
Why, well, who knows, whatever model they create in their mind. Which is why the whole challenge from Mr. McToon is a moot challenge, because he makes the error even within the assertion of the challenge that he's conflating the actual Earth with modelic interpretations of it. So he fails from the get-go.
MC Boogerator fails from the get-go. Shocking.
Yeah. It's a category error. They mix the model with the actual Earth. And they say if this model exists, then therefore this is what the Earth is.
First, I'd like to see that.
Then when you look at a globe, it says the representations are not to scale.
Yeah, that's okay. Now you've led QE. He's tried to get it out twice because he's got a point, and I'd like it to be made. What was that you say? I'll try and lead you, QE. About what were you saying about model? You want to see what now?
See for the first time the globe-tard model. Just once.
What if I show you a graph?
A graph?
Yeah. I've had graphs offered to me as models of Earth. Epvos effect was presented to me as a model of Earth.
No. Define model.
Define model.
Yeah, you're finished.
Very
Just
hot
stop.
chick.
Yeah, we don't live on a model. It's a reification fallacy. Citation, please, was right.
And they don't even have a model. And they don't even know what a model is. This is rinse repeat for the whole time. Models have been here the whole time, right? So 2015, this is 2015. Every time they model 2015, they don't even know what one is. I can't tell you how many times I trap. As soon as I hear model, the conversation's stopping. Right? So I don't know. It's got to be over 500 times. Easy. They've never defined it. Not one. So there you go.
Models are for fashion shows, not science debates.
No, there's lots of different. There's lots of different types of model. So yes, you could get into that. Does he mean a supermodel with curvaceous swimwear on her? Does he mean? No, you gotta. Yeah, contextually, we all know what type of model we're talking about when he says model and asks for a definition.
Well, the attempts at showing a model I've seen have been flat Earth models that they confuse with the globe.
Well, if we're
flat
going
Earthers
with
been
the
Jedi mind trick. I'm sorry. Who rumpus me this time?
You rumpus.
I was first.
You weren't first.
Yeah, I was. I bet you $10.
Shit.
Go ahead.
I tell you, the point's lost.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're going off of the definition where it's a three-dimensional representation of a thing, a proposed structure, meaning like, if there was such a thing of the Earth, you would have a model that is scaled down to represent the Earth. But they don't have that though.
Three-dimensional structure. Three-dimensional structure model. I like that. That was really good. Citation, please.
Oxford.
Oxford. Are we talking about architecture here? We wouldn't
Nathan, I
have to be in
loaded.
another category here, would we?
Sorry, dealing with trains and loud noises. What was that?
We wouldn't have to be in another category here, would we? With architecture? Are we to this point now?
Well, it's not defined what the globe model is. They haven't defined what kind of model it is. They just keep saying using the word model. So I don't even know if you can be in a category or because it's not in a category yet. Hey, you know, Proto and our opposition that keep on saying that the elevation angles don't have an opposite side, as in there's no triangle. That means they don't understand, or they're just denying that the zenith from the GP is the opposite of the triangle.
Right.
You have the adjacent.
Yes, they're just not connecting.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
they're
they're just
using the
not
flat
connecting.
plane of the stars.
Oh, God. We're just not connecting that line down there. Yeah, you're right. It's stupid. It's the opposite from the angle you just measured. It's just like incoherent 3-year-olds that got a hold of Wiki Google and looked up a triangle. You know what it was? It was when I started with the elevation angles from QMath, because in one diagram, they don't connect. You know, they don't put the opposite side of the triangle. They latched on to that, right? And they said, well, that's not a triangle. But just beneath it, it has the triangle enclosed. It's nothing. They attached onto a vapor of nonsensical bullshittery. I don't know. I think they left that argument. I think so. I haven't seen it in a couple days, so.
Yeah, I disagree with that because what I think they're at and what I've been thinking
with
for
what?
past, what you said about about where they're coming from with that argument. They're begging the question when they're saying that the elevation angle doesn't have an opposite side, because remember the zenith from the observer and the zenith from the GP in their world, not reality, in their world, meet at the center of a globe, so they're diverging. So that angle would not have an opposite.
I'll comment on that one.
What?
I'll comment on that one. The QE. Nathan, go to the very last slide I just put up in Master B. QE also shared this slide.
Okay.
And Proto commented on this slide. So it should be the one with the guy sailing the boat and the navigator, which is a woman using the sextant. Tell me when it's on the screen.
Yep.
Okay. In simplified terms, when we take a sextant altitude of the sun, we're creating a right angle triangle between it, the Earth's surface at the GP and ourselves. Grade school geometry tells us that the two angles in the right angle triangle must equal 90. Proto said on that show, when I shared the slide and read those exact words, that's just not the way it's done. I don't agree with that.
That's right.
And yet here,
That's right. That's right. That's correct.
And so-
Because I gave it to Rufy, the numpty from Down Under, and Protothad not too long ago. And they both in unison said, get ready. Nuh-uh. I'm serious.
Nuh-uh.
I'm not making that
Yeah.
up. It was nuh-uh.
In the meantime, we have a guy in the ocean with a sailboat navigating celestially, very successfully saying this is the way it's done.
Yeah, they were putting out more or less that Yotters wasn't a good source. More or less.
It's not Yotters. They have a nautical almanac. They're following the methodology of celestial navigation. What's it got to do with Lewis and Clark, who wasn't even the ocean doing it with an artificial horizon, versus this guy who is on the ocean doing it? What are these idiots talking
about? Because in their model, right, of non-reality, there is no opposite side. They never have an opposite side. They never create a triangle when they're doing what they did.
There has to
Good
be,
point.
because
Reality.
that's what comes down from that's what forms your GP.
So that's their problem, not ours.
Yeah.
Isn't that irrelevant to the question, though?
What's that?
Well,
What's the question?
to assert whether there's a line coming down or not, that's irrelevant to whether you have an angle with a curved baseline. That's just like
correct.
a red herring, isn't
That's
it?
true.
Yeah, that's
that
like
is.
a look over there thing.
It's a good point, because it's worth stressing, because it does slightly dilute the consistency of the argument if you don't highlight that. So this only came up a couple of days ago, and I'm like, okay, they say it's an open triangle. Then that that might frazzle some people's brains. I'm like, open triangle? What the hell are you saying? You're saying an open triangle's not a triangle? Because you haven't drawn one of the lines? Well, we're going to get that from the GP. Of course it's a triangle. Even if we weren't, it's still a triangle anyway. What are you talking about? I get it. But...
Well, they're conceding the
Hold
baseline.
Hold on. But step one, to your point, John, measure an elevation angle. 2 straight lines meeting at a vertex, the point that you're measuring from. One of them being a flat baseline. So after the fact, you're going to draw a line down, close that open triangle they say isn't a triangle. Yeah, but first step is going to be measuring a flat baseline.
That's correct.
Why don't they just do what they tell us to do all the time and just use our imagination? Just imagine that the triangle's closed. Idiots.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were speaking about that the other day when we made the point. We're speaking about the fact that they want to talk about the opposite side of the triangle not being there, right, as opposed to deal with the surface. But the second reason why they want to talk about that is because there is no opposite side in their model. And this is the thing: they don't have an opposite side with when they don't use triangles when they try and even bring angles to their equatorial plane. This is the thing. What they're at now is what all of them are at these days, is they have to beg the question in a cloaked fashion. So they're begging the question without letting you know they're begging the question. Like, they'll throw in a little phrase that one of them will realize what that person's talking about, like reciprocals and angles, right? Which is a surveying thing, right? A surveying mathematical thing. It's not even part of celestial navigation, but it has to be for them. So like that guy yesterday, Hoymar or whatever, threw that in there a couple of times, and he was actually begging the question without being forthright about it. And they're doing the same with this opposite thing.
Nathan,
can you go?
Sorry, Brian. Nathan, can you go 5 slides previous to the last one, and you'll see an article. It shows
Got it.
GP and this. Okay, so here you see they've got their curved Earth, which is not real, and then they've got how celestial navigation is done, right triangle. And if you go to the very right of the article, it says, whenever you take a side of the sun, you are one corner of a large triangle. It's a right triangle. The problem they have is that the lie has been unveiled, that they have been pushing on society. In the middle, they have a circle of equal altitude and the GP. And to the left, they show the dotted line that has to be straight baseline. But they superimpose the globe and create a curve. Move to the next slide, if you would. So here's that GP, and this is from Celestial Navigation in a nutshell, not a yachter, okay? Base of a triangle. Well, what is the base of a triangle? Well, we know it's straight because triangle is 3 straight lines, so it's got to be straight. It's 1,830 nautical miles to the observer. Next slide. But then when you look at the next picture, it's not straight. They got this curve. Well, the previous one showed the dotted line. That was true. But in this one, they got rid of the dotted line and said, see, that's the surface of a curved Earth. But that's not a 90 degree anymore. But they got a 90 degree box in there. So they're lying to you. Anyone with half a brain, well, let's just make it easy. A quarter of a brain would see that this is not a true slide. Next slide. Then you've got the Navy showing you how it's done with the full right triangle from the GP and the Navy ship, all on flat plane, like a snow globe here. And if you go to the next slide, they copy that. And look what they do with that. They take that snow globe and start moving around wherever they need to use celestial navigation. They need the Earth to be flat. It's so embarrassing to be a baller these days. You got to lie like nothing.
Yeah. And that they don't have an opposite side. Sorry, Clint. Oh, Kiwi, go on.
Yada, 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 yadders.
Yachtsman.
I got somebody to say yachters.
No way.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, you got Hoymar from yesterday, the chat skank. He's back chat skating.
Get his butt in here.
Yeah. I call him reciprocating Zenith. Him coming back in here chat skanking right now is tantamount to the chairman of PETA returning to work day after he was videotaped live clubbing baby seals with a nail spike 44-inch Louisville Slugger. Just come back in like nothing's happened.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Did he ever figure out why he needs a sphere underneath the horizontal plane that he keeps putting on top of it when he doesn't need the sphere to do any measurements?
You don't.
You ever figure that out?
He didn't.
No, the best is he said, why ain't you getting this?
No, he didn't figure that out. Otherwise, he wouldn't be back here chat skanking, as QE calls it. But the reason he's back chat skanking is because we now live in a world that's been created in the mind's eye of the general public through a suspension of disbelief. Paralleling it, we have the internet, where you can behave in a very different way to the reality of the world that faces you. Further to that, you've got video games where you can respawn after death. So the metaphor is that the guy comes in, gets shot in the face, but he just respawns, runs back in. That's how they behave.
Yeah. Is that what it is?
And the only solution to that is camping and just keep shooting them upon respawn until they get sick of it and leave.
So that's a very unique take on that, Nathan. I was wondering about that. Now that you say that, you're probably right. I'm not a video game guy, but now that you say that, okay, all right. Thanks for explaining the psychosis.
The entire world is a stage, and the internet made it even a bigger stage.
If you didn't understand that, then you won't have ever got the teabag metaphor then.
Good one.
Well, that's where it comes from.
Teabag metaphor? No, that teabagging was here long before video games, son.
Well, no, but it's video game linked. So the same scenario. Arwin's taken it one step further, so I'll include that. You're got a machine gun pointing at the spawn point, and they come out and go, refraction, bang! Refraction, bang! Right, it just keeps happening. Yeah? Eventually, you get sick of it on the gun stand, so when they come out, die, you want to go over to them and teabag them, which that bit you do, you know the sexual reference. But in the game, it just means you crouch on their face as they lie dying. To add insult to injury.
Yep.
That's
Or
hilarious.
it's when Nathan asks how it feels to have his balls dragged across her face.
Yeah, there's a third one.
Nathan, I think you're
No face left.
Hold on, I want to hear the third one.
I think you're steeping too low with the tea bag.
What's the third one?
You've created it, Nathan. You have created the third teabagging.
Third teabagging?
Yeah, there's the sexual one, there's the one from video gaming, and then there's the one you keep doing with the squeaky noise.
I thought it was. I thought you were imitating.
I was
a monkey.
wondering about that squeaky noise. Is that where you get that from?
No, I just made that up. It's It's repugnant, really.
So the squeaky's
using
not
them as a
associated.
rag cloth. He's using them as a rag cloth to polish his golden balls.
But
Okay,
that was
let's-
hysterical.
Okay, yes, the metaphor's gone too far. It's my own fault.
It was funny when Virus made the sound.
But I thought you were imitating a monkey.
Oh, okay.
So wait a minute. He hasn't explained it yet. So where's the squeaky come from?
That's too graphic to detail. Look, let's just let's just understand
that's where
that
the
the
line is
squeaking's
drawn.
amusing.
Okay.
That's all that we need to know.
It's the polishing noise. It's
No,
like you
shush.
polish.
Let's not detail it.
polishing a car, like polishing a car, right, Nathan? You
no,
know that
let's,
sound.
Let's change the subject. Go ahead,
The
Extremis.
forehead is involved.
Hold on. Unless Extremis is only getting involved because we're talking about teabagging. Go ahead, Extremis.
I just said it's good to know that that's where you draw the line. Okay, that's too graphic to describe that, but everything else is okay. That's good to know.
52 mother effers.
Thanks for
What
that,
really is
Extremis.
graphic?
Any other color commentaries you
No, but
have?
look, what Nathan's practically done, if I may, what Nathan's practically done is like play the video game, teabag him, then take a snapshot of it, and then create a deep fake video out of that snapshot and email it to the guy.
Okay, it's gone way too far now.
Anyway, what I was gonna say, 18 years of my schooling, them pretending it's a globe. Yeah, that's actually repugnant.
Yeah, I agree.
No, that's a real teabagging.
Yeah, that's them teabagging us.
I think you'll find that teabagging was originally invented by Americans.
What, the Western world heliocentric
tea
indoctrination
revolution?
in schools is American? What do you mean?
The
Boston Tea Party.
Revolution, throwing the tea overboard.
The Boston Tea Party.
Right?
Well, technically it comes from India.
The tea?
They threw the tea overboard.
He does.
I have no
Right.
idea what any of you are babbling about. You're just throwing out terms, not qualifying them in
American
any way. I'm
history,
totally
American
lost.
It's not
history.
possible to say
Can
that,
the
because everyone might
American
say something now
explain?
and say something. So.
Can the
It's
American
easy.
explain?
It's easy. The British don't like that story.
No. The British could have killed any time they want. They could have destroyed America.
If
What
you, as
about
an
the
audience
Denmark
member,
Tea Party?
yeah, exactly. It's been thrown out there. No one's qualified it.
Missionary war, they could have.
That's why they lost.
Come on.
What do you mean, come on?
Well, you were there, Neil?
Do some history on the size of England's army, and you tell me they couldn't have just ran right through America.
Yeah, because it was spread around. The whole power of the British army was that it was spread around everywhere, right?
Yeah,
Don't
but just
believe
India.
everything
You can't just graft in
Come on,
all
guys.
these armies from entire different continents
And yet the
to
French
start
don't
war
want it.
on one continent.
But let me just get this straight, Arwin. The stories about heliocentric Earth and Thea and smashing into us for cause, that's all not true stories from history. But these stories from history, they are the true stories from history, right?
Exactly my point.
I'm just going by logic based on the presuppositions of assuming that it actually happened. Yeah.
Exactly. Your point means that you don't believe anything anymore.
Not true. Not true.
Okay, so
Not true.
are
That's
we,
an all or nothing
are-
fallacy.
So are we separate of England compared to what
if
the
you
rule they?
think you-
I'm talking.
If you think you are, you're
I'm
insane.
talking.
He's still talking, Neil.
Still talking, Neil.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
So
not talking anymore.
it-
Oh, he is. My bad.
nice one there. Yeah. So here's the problem I see all the time. Well, they lied there, so they gotta be lying about everything. Come on.
That's not what I said.
What did
There's
you
two
say?
things in history that really shocked me, and I don't know what. That's the Revolutionary War, and if in World War II there was what they said there was. That's all.
Okay, so the British Empire, which was
No. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's just address that. The overriding premise you've just established. No, I don't agree with that at all. So, just because you can prove you've been lied to by a specific area, just means that you should apply greater vigilance and more discernment when assessing stuff from the same source. That's all it means. Doesn't mean they're automatically liars. So if I say, well, this person lied once, therefore every single word that came out of their mouth is a lie. Well, paradoxically speaking, if the next words out of their mouth were, I'm lying, the world would explode. Paradoxically speaking. So, no, that's sweeping. As somebody said it already, it's an all or nothing fallacy. Well, if you say that because they've lied, everything they say must therefore, by your implication, be also a lie. No, that's taking it too much of an.
That's not what I said, though.
It's in the direction of solipsism.
It is solipsism.
That's not what I'm saying.
But it's no big deal, Neil. It's no big deal because I could just give me a couple of hours. I'll come back to you after I've written the history of how many men are in my army.
Exactly my point.
What Neil said is the British Army, as large as it was, could never have lost to Americans who were fighting for their liberty. And
you didn't hear what I say after that.
Can I finish?
Neil, stop interrupting noisily. It's not helpful.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Not only that, it was like they were fighting their own brothers, sort of like what's going on now.
Yeah, we know the story. It's not about the story. It's about figuring out what's real, what is not.
Exactly, but get mine right.
It's very tiring. This is less than 300 years old. We have source material. We have diaries of soldiers. We got stories from generation to generation of families passing down. We've got all the archived evidence of the 13 colonies. We've got all this. And your point is the Americans were such a small group of people. How did they ever beat this big army? Yes. Now that's the point I'm trying to address.
Okay, 9/11 just happened. You tell me that's what happened. Okay, you tell me that's really history.
Stop scattergunning, Neil.
Why are you bringing 9/11
I'm
to
making
this?
a point. I'm using it
you're
to make a
scattergunning
point.
away.
Your
And
point
that was only 20 years ago. That's what I'm saying.
Clearly,
That's in the information
did not
age,
want
though.
to win the war. It's obvious.
We need Nathan
decided
for
to
clarification.
let these countries.
Look, guys, we're in the information age. This is the 21st century. Yeah, fakery will be much thicker, much more upfront, right? Because the medium's changed.
You're crazy.
In the
You can't
past,
move.
it wasn't
You can't
that
move
quick.
past. You can't move past what's going on. So the bottom line
Have you
is,
ever read a
Neil
book
said
about
something.
propaganda?
It took 10 a while to go ahead and restructure, restate what Neil said. He gave you your point, Neil, and he was going to go on to address the point, and then you interrupted with, what about 9/11? Can he just finish the point if it really is addressing your point? Or you could say, that wasn't my point.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, if you would have started at the beginning and said, just like 9/11 information has been goofed around with, I believe that this whole Revolutionary War information has been goofed. You didn't start that way. You started by saying the size of the British Army against the band of Americans who decided they were going to fight for their freedom. And I was addressing that. And then at the end, you bring in 9/11, which obviously we all...
7-Eleven was a part-time job. Wake up, people. Nobody died. Nobody got hurt.
Holy shit, you
Stop
twist my
it.
shit all the time.
Can we
What
just have a
happened?
normal conversation that's actually about the information and not about outrage about what each
Hey,
other is
Owen,
saying?
when you get your balls twisted, you keep going, right? And nobody stops you. Jesus, just get it right. That's one of the reasons, the size of the army,
We're
but there was other
talking
ones.
about that, Neil.
Oh.
That's the point. Get it right. That's what we're talking about.
He's going
You're
back and
just
saying, I
exposing
said
one
just
singular approach, and
Owen,
you're not,
shut up.
Owen,
you
you're
don't
not
seem to
helping
be
matters.
open.
Say
Shut the
tangent.
freak up, Owen!
Say tangent one more time.
Holy shit! Not just the size of
Say
their
tangent
army.
one more time, motherfucker.
That's
Hey,
one
went
of
for
the
a
reasons
coffee.
I
What's
said
going on?
there's various ones.
This is
You
this
want to
is
believe all the bullshit that history tells you? Go ahead.
Neil and Arwen. If you
Neil,
keep carrying
why
on
are you
like this,
screaming at the top of your
I
lungs?
can't share this with my child. Please stop.
Well, see, you can't talk about
Sorry?
9/11
What?
with a true New Yorker. They get very triggered.
We're not talking about 9/11. Now you're triggering me. I'm trying to drag it back to the actual point. It's not even about the substance.
I don't get triggered, and I was there. So I don't
He
know what that
left.
means.
So
Yeah, but Arwen, you're not helping matters when Neil is already angry and you start jumping on him. You know what I mean? If Neil has something to say,
clarify.
yeah, but
the
if Neil has something to
situation.
say, yeah, but if it's between Neil and Tent and they have something to say to each other, leave them sorted out. You
some
coming in, swinging in the middle is not helping matters.
You got some feedback, Arwen. Can you mute when you're not talking?
I was just trying to create some order because it was just scattergunning. Nobody's
Shouting at
getting
Neil
informed.
is not creating order.
Yeah, well, letting him just ramble on
I see what you did, Arwood.
Hey, hello.
I see what you did, Arwood. Okay, go ahead.
Who made this meme? Samuel L. Jackson saying, "Say tangent one more time, motherfucker."
Yeah. Immediately when you said that, hold on. Immediately when you said that yesterday, I was looking at chat, and it was, if I'm not mistaken, what the hell's his name?
Jesus was the original truther.
I forget. Is that P Mars?
Yeah.
What are you doing
that's
here?
the voice I
Shut the
haven't
hell
heard.
up.
don't mute him. Don't mute
OMG.
him.
He's been banned from this show, hasn't he?
Yeah, he can't show his ass on the Discord server.
Oh. So he's good to go?
Yeah, forgive and forget.
He left.
Do you
No,
want
he
to know
didn't.
why? Do you want to know why? I woke Pia Mars up at 3 o'clock in the
hold
morning.
on a second. Thanks for the hold on a second, Nathan. Thanks for the color commentary, extremists. He didn't leave. He's still here. Go ahead, Nathan.
I was just going to say, P Mars, I woke him up about 3 in the morning, his time, because I couldn't get something to work on the stream. I couldn't set up G Plus properly. So I called him, asked him how to do it, and knackered, he took me through it. Right? We were enemies at the time, we still are, technically speaking. It didn't faze him. He took me through how to set up a stream. In many ways, if it wasn't for PMARS, I wouldn't have a stream. I wouldn't have got it working when I contacted him because I didn't know how else to ask. So, just so you know, credit where credit's due.
Shout out to P-Mars.
You're supposed to love your enemies, so.
Shout out retracted.
What a total red herring, Nathan. I'm ashamed.
Nathan, if you would be a proper moderator and take my back, it wouldn't descend into chaos.
That's not what it was. Anyway.
No, just for Neil's benefit, Arwen had an earful from Brian, not me. Just so you know, when you left or dropped or had an interruption of your signal or paddle.
Yeah,
or
I'm in a
whatever you
bad
had.
area.
Yeah, that's what we'll call it. That's what we'll call it. Dead area. That's right.
Is it Harlem?
Is now a bad time to mention that well, you know what? It's not even that coming at Arwen is wrong. It's that I also was trying to create order. So, I mean, berate me too and everyone else.
No, that's what I am here
Only
for.
Arwen.
I'm the lightning rod. Everybody needs somebody to blame. You know, I'm the guy.
Exactly.
No, fair is fair, Arwen. I got
Hang
you.
on now, there's no
I know we have our
going on
times,
here.
but
Look, this is
I always
Arwen's
blame
moment.
Arwen.
This is where Arwen can declare himself a martyr. Come on, don't steal his moment.
No, Arwen declares himself as the victor when this happens, not the martyr. He's won something
the
for
thing
once.
about the martyr, it's the same thing.
All I'm trying to get across at me is I don't want to be
something for
labeled
once.
as.
Did you hear that, Arwen?
Neil, no one's caring. It's just like they don't even care about what you're saying. Mid-sentence,
I
Kiwi
know,
just
I
totally
know.
rumpus you.
What else is new?
Yeah,
It's a
mid-sentence,
bad
I said it
connection. We
first.
couldn't hear you
So,
properly. Sorry.
so Arwen, did you hear what was said?
No.
You didn't hear Anthony?
I said, this is Arwen's moment because he's won something for once.
What?
Don't worry about it.
Won something? I don't get it.
Rather than being
don't-
called a
it doesn't-
martyr,
Oh.
if we change the martyr into a winner, that means because martyr means that you're a victim, right? And no one's a victim here, right? We're all winners, right? But if we change the word martyr into a victor or winner, then Arwen wins something for once, rather than it being a martyr and being negative. It's a victor and it's a winner.
But didn't Arwen win?
I'm always wrong.
Didn't Arwen win Rancy's heart one time so much so that he gave him a camera?
Yep.
No, he's
Don't mention the camera.
Hold on. No,
Don't
no.
mention Randy's drone.
That's not correct.
Yeah.
He
Don't
didn't get a
mention the
free
lighthouse.
camera. Hello. Let me just correct that. Number one, you're confusing several different cameras. So Jose got a camera for a reduced price from Jaren. That's as I understand it. Now, also, I ran on Ranty's behalf a GoFundMe for Ranty to buy a camera, which, as far as I understand, he did. That's it. Simple.
And then he gave Arwen that camera.
And then never shut up about it.
You want to sell it?
I'm so happy because, simply because I'm, what do you call the word? Petty. And in retrospect, I'm delighted that Arwen didn't say a damn thing after he got the camera. Because Ranty's a piece of shit.
Hold on, but Ranty did. Hold on, that's incorrect.
What
Hold
I
on.
didn't say, I thanked him.
Stop. I was
He
there.
kept trolling me how I
Hello.
didn't thank him.
I physically manifested that transaction. I handed Ranty's camera to Arwen, and there and then filmed. He thanked him on the spot. I filmed it. What the hell's Ranty talking about? If you said he didn't get thanked, that's a lie. That's not true.
Yeah, it was a lie. He was trolling me with that for like months.
I think
He wanted you to bow down and worship him.
Yeah, that was the expectation. It wasn't
wanted you to bow down and worship him.
That's
Yeah,
right.
but
Ranty,
Nathan-
You can tell.
Ranty didn't just
You
want
can
to
tell
thank you.
Ranty is
Ranty
lying
wanted you
because
to
his
kiss
lips are
feet every
moving.
time you walked in.
Yeah, but Nathan, how do we know you filmed it? How do we know that history is true?
Because there's a picture
Shut
that
up,
constantly slides by. There's a
No,
picture
that's a
of
standard.
it.
Hold on.
It's a really
No,
good photo.
don't
Hang
take
on,
it too fast.
you're
Let's
all-
just
you're
hello,
all-
hello,
you're all
hello,
missing the
hello,
point.
hello. No, that's a reasonable question. So, in terms of primary source research, that would be the answer, wouldn't it? I am the primary source, or if I got it first hand from Arwen, if it wasn't me behind the camera, I'd have a primary source to refer to. But that's how you know.
Right, exactly.
So
and
what's
we
our
have
prime- Okay,
we have
so-
that information about the Revolutionary War from primary sources, historical fact.
What primary sources? have you got?
Now,
Hold on.
can I just throw in some facts here?
What primary sources have you got?
Well, would you like me to do a full study on it and get them for you?
Are you
No, he would like you to
inferring you've
support
got
the
them when
claim.
you don't know if you actually do?
No, I know that letters have been written by the characters who were at the time to each other, and we have copies of those letters. I've seen those.
And you call them characters. We know they existed, as opposed to in the narrative.
Yeah, like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson,
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare. Oh God.
Yeah, he was there.
Just kidding. Because
I must clear some stuff up here. Right, I'm sorry now, but I've got to go back a step. Ranty gave Arwen the P900, but Ranty got a P1000 due to a GoFundMe, if I'm not correct. If I'm
That's
not
correct.
mistaken, isn't that
No,
correct?
that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Now, Ranty also then gave Arwen a hard time because Arwen wasn't using the camera to go off and do stuff with, and he felt that Arwen didn't appreciate the camera enough and the gesture enough. But Ranty then also, there was another GoFundMe, if I'm correct, for a drone. Now, who was said anything about the drone? I mean, he gave Arwen a hard time for not using the camera for here. What about the drone? How much, where is all these drone observations?
Well, he did an unpacking video, and that's the only thing I ever saw
I
about
didn't
it.
see any stuff from his drone. I can't. Did anybody see any stuff from Ranty's drone?
Only his unpacking video. That's it.
We got that.
Yeah, but he gave
video.
Arwen a hard time for not using the camera.
I saw.
Then he didn't use the drone.
I saw the angriest unpacking video ever. It was like he just got off the Titanic or something, and he was so angry that he'd lost something. It was the worst unboxing video I've ever seen.
The CIA must have got to him at that point. It was probably when he had to set up his new YouTube channel.
Okay, with all due respect, who cares? Does any of this matter?
Well, I just thought that we should focus on that, maybe.
The Blackpool Swan could have used some drone images, right?
Well,
That
you
would have
heard
been
it
very
here
handy with
first.
Blackmore.
You heard it here first, Ranty. No one gives a damn about you. Who cares? From Nathan's mouth. That's what he said. I agree. I took your spot. Have a good one.
You took his spot? What do you mean you took his spot? Spot?
To be fair, though,
Did that
Ranty
chair
never
have
really had one.
Ranty's name on it, did it?
No, Ranty never really had a slot.
I don't
But
know,
you can
was
think he
just-
did.
When he was here, he was just as much a valued member of the team as anybody else. I don't want to make
He
it
had his
stuff that
own
isn't true.
successful channel.
He wasn't a regular.
He was kind of
He
regular.
had his own channel. He did his own shows.
No shit.
The second half didn't start out like that.
I remember the last show I heard Ranty on was when he just kicked off, what's his name? Slick James. He just like kicked him out of the show. And I was
still
waiting
think
for that
Slick
Monday.
James. I still think Slick James is a valuable member, man. Him and that other guy, Ebon Kim. Yeah, I like
No,
those.
that guy was annoying.
Slick James. He was a really cool character until a few messages got passed back to me where he was really overtly abusive to some of the female members in the Discord server. I was quite shocked.
That's what I heard. I was shocked too.
Ooh, I didn't know that. That would have changed my outlook.
Hold on, but he did confess that he was a pimp.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he used to be a gangster.
Is he not the man with no actual opinion of his own?
Exactly.
You know who we're
he
talking
didn't
about.
have belief.
Wait a minute. If we're gonna parallel behaviors, Nathan is a pimp too. To the ballers that come on here. Shut up, bitch.
No, that's
Where'd you
called,
get
that's
that
not a pimp. That's
Lord.
called a dominatrix.
So
Listen, Slick James got his
Slick
ass
James-
handed to him by 10th.
There's a difference between being a pimp and treating ballers like my whores.
Not really.
That's
Well,
HOR.
I will
Well,
have
let's
to
be
point out.
clear about the genius. The genius of Slick James is that he wouldn't put up with anybody looking at something and then making a modelic interpretation and saying it was reality. You cut him off at the pass. Be like, you don't see that. You're lying.
Thank you. You've seen what I saw in Slick James. Every time someone said something about knowing something, that's when he says, "How do you know?"
Yeah, this is what we actually do in art. Is called draw what you see, not what you think you know. When you look out and you see something, you draw it as you see it. You don't like make a model in your mind and then try to draw the model because you won't accurately represent reality when you do that.
What, kind of like the Ball Earth from Space paintings, aka described as photos?
No, yes, but also like looking out at the horizon, which is, horizontal in your periphery from left to right, and then imagining that it's actually going out from you at your feet in a curve, descending from you. It's like you don't actually see that when you look out there. Nobody sees that ever.
Yeah,
And
I was
let
thinking
me
about
ask you
that
this.
yesterday.
How in the world, check this out. If you believe that's true about what you're looking at, how would you ever draw it in a picture that represents reality and actually matches what you see? You can't. You have to make orthographic views. You have to make modelic projections. You have to do all these extra things.
Don't you remember when that guy came in? He said, I wish I could show you how I saw it. And he drew it, and it was Muppet Vision.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. Exactly.
Do they claim that the globe model is scientific? That's science, right? Is that what they say?
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Well, if science doesn't prove anything, so then how is it proving their ball?
They say, let me clarify that. They say science doesn't prove anything when we point out that what they call science doesn't prove anything. So they instinctually think, well, this is science. It wasn't. And it doesn't prove anything. Ergo, science doesn't prove anything. They also misappropriate null and decide to reinterpret that as science never proving anything. It does. That's the fundamental premise of doing science, establishing cause empirically. with systematic experimentation.
And time is always the cause.
There is one
Remember
type
when
of
I
science
was
though,
saying that we
that
live in
does
a
fail to prove
scientific
anything.
dictatorship, and then COVID happened?
Say again.
Remember when I kept telling everyone we live in a scientific dictatorship, and then the coronavirus happened, like, proving that I was totally right about that?
How does that prove you were right? This is off topic.
No, he's right. He is right. We do live in a scientific dictatorship. He's right.
Yeah, he is correct.
No, there's no. Well, that's a misnomer. To that, hell no. I'm tired. And this is why I wanted to say before. Hold on, because I watch some of my favorite YouTubers that I talk about all the time, that I utilize their sources all the time, and it really bothers me that when they get on various platforms, they talk about pseudoscience as science and how we need to attack science. Like they don't do a good enough job at differentiating between science and pseudoscience. Now you're talking about a scientific
it's all bullshit.
dictatorship. What the hell is? No, it's not all bullshit, because science
It is all bullshit.
is a part of because the scientific method. The scientific method yields an empirical. Can I finish?
Stop rumpusing them.
The scientific method yields an empirical result based on the logical setup of the question that you ask. It's either A causes B or A doesn't cause B, which the latter would be the no result. That's literally it. Everything else that everyone talks about is pseudoscience. So when people say science is shit and they really mean pseudoscience, it's damaging to the actual method, especially with people who are ignorant and don't know better.
No,
Well
you're
said.
wrong, dude.
Okay.
All science is garbage, dude. Like the evidence, empirical evidence doesn't tell you anything. It all relies on interpretation and who interprets the evidence.
You're a clown.
What? The scientific.
Really? What's the scientific method?
Okay, look. P. Mars. You haven't
What's
been
the
here for a while.
scientific method?
He doesn't know. We already know he doesn't,
Doesn't
know by
matter.
what he's just said.
I know. It's like observe, hypothesis, test.
It doesn't matter.
Analyze results, test again, or whatever, or from what
You're trying
to
to convince us
something and not know what it is.
You're trying to convince us we live in a scientific dictatorship, and when asked what science, you say it doesn't matter.
That's what I was saying, Chocolate.
Does
You
kind
said
of
it
matter,
better.
doesn't it?
Yeah, like
oh God!
science
Before we have a massive
fucking
fallout over this, P, there's only a minor correction. It's minor, right? What they call science isn't actually science. Now, with the brackets around it, science, that is what you're calling a scientific dictatorship, and we agree. But
no.
Oh, okay.
I don't like any science. Science is bad.
Science
That's
is
just silly.
bad. What do you mean?
How is
See,
science
that's why.
bad? Explain
but
that to me.
Before you do, that's.
For one thing,
I just want everyone to be on notice. I said before you do. I know you heard me say that before you started talking. That's what's dangerous about some of my favorite YouTubers. Again, I preface it with some of my favorite YouTubers.
We got all this, Eli.
Yeah, so the bottom line is you can't say all science, man.
No, he's not accepting that.
Yes, I can.
To someone who's ignorant, first hearing that, yeah, they're gonna anyway, never mind. Go ahead.
Science proves things.
I mean,
but if you think it doesn't, that's a misapprehension, Pete. It does. Science
well,
proves things.
But the main purpose is to enslave humanity. They're
no, it's not.
Using science, like they create science, like political science,
pseudoscience,
and
equivocating.
Yeah, that's pseudoscience. Political science isn't science.
Those are priesthoods. Those are
it's whatever. It's they use rational. It's using rational. What is it? Methods to wait.
No, that's not the scientific method.
Hold on, guys. Hello. He's rattling off a load of things that aren't science and saying these are the things they use to control us. And we're saying, yeah, agree.
That's
but they aren't. Oh God, fuck's sake! Try once more.
No, they are science.
No, they're not. That's the point. They're not. They're not adhering to the scientific method. The definition of pseudoscience, P, is a non-adherence to the scientific method where one is claimed as science. So if I say science and I haven't adhered to the method, by definition, that's pseudoscience. So when you say political science, where's the naturally observed phenomena, hypothesis with null, and systematic experimentation in the political arena? Yeah, there isn't any. Automatically, that is by definition pseudoscience. So when you say it's a scientific dictatorship controlling us, no, it's a pseudoscience dictatorship masquerading as having science.
No, you see, you've been indoctrinated. You buy into all the science crap.
What science crap? You can't even define it, P. What science?
Science is a study of the natural world.
So political issues, those would fall into the natural world, would they?
Sure.
No, they wouldn't. These are man-made issues, conventions. Politics isn't a naturally occurring phenomena, P.
Yeah, so
You're
is
saying the
So
study
it's
of
not
the
science.
natural world
So it's
doesn't
not
exist?
science. So where you think it's science.
No, it is science.
No, it isn't. It's not natural phenomena. It's not hypothesis.
It's defined as science,
it's not
dude.
experiment. It's not science.
really.
You've just
It's
misunderstood
literally
it.
called political science.
Yeah, I know what it's called. I know what it's called. You can call it computer science. Does that mean it's science? No. That's what I'm trying to illustrate to you. Just open
It's
your ears
just
for a
like
couple of
this
P
Federal Reserve is not
without
actually
everybody talking through me. Just open your ears for a few seconds, P. Everything you've said science before, that would be political science, and I'm now adding computer science, right? They aren't science. That's the point. All of these things you can infer are the things that control us, and I'd agree. But they aren't science. The definition of pseudoscience is something that claims to be science, like political science or computer science, that hasn't adhered to the scientific method. Has political science adhered to the method? No. Therefore, pseudoscience. Has computer science? We know it's called computer science. Has it adhered to the scientific method? No. Therefore, not science. So why are all these things called science, P? Well, so that
where
they
did
can
you get
establish...
this definition of pseudoscience?
What's my definition? It's just the definition. A non-adherence to the scientific method.
But where did you? I don't know. I don't think that's the
dictionary, buddy.
Well, go and get one then.
I don't think
Give me your
I
citation.
don't think the dictionary's going to say that.
Well, what would that have to do with anything except you're implying a genetic fallacy?
Well, I mean, you just basically
Genetic fallacy after equivocation fallacy. Your reasoning's fallacious. Yeah.
I use.
Your reasoning's fallacious. That's why.
Of course, like I'm not.
Yes, of course. So you're a numpty dipshit. In other words.
Yes, I'm an idiot.
Thank you. Yes. Why are we even listening to you? I don't know. So I'm going to put you on mute. Right? And let's get back. You're welcome. Let's get back to the ass whooping the British received from tugging on Superman's cape.
Technically, what was this point that was being made? I was very curious.
It was a little bit off because the American Revolution coincided with several wars that Britain happened to be in at the time. The major one being the French. That's why they weren't able to designate all their forces to stomping on us, as was described.
Is that all the British have to say for themselves?
I don't know. Maybe tomorrow we could talk about the history of Star Wars.
Star Wars? You off your medication, Eli?
But do you guys have a chip on your shoulder or something? What's going on?
No, I'm just saying. Like, we're talking about history that we can't confirm or verify. We asked it, well, what are the primary sources? And okay, well, I mean, there's another story, Star Wars. We could just talk about trilogies 1 through 3.
1030 touched on this.
Nah.
So if enough time passes, we can ignore it as history? Is that the claim?
Who said that?
Well, you're asking for primary source evidence of something that.
No, I mean, did you hear me say what you said, or did I make the point that I made?
I'm addressing your point.
Oh, jeez.
I'm addressing your point. Star Wars.
But you're asking me if I said something I didn't say.
Well, you're saying the history of Star Wars, no one's alive for that. No one's alive for the Revolution. That seems to be the only connection I can draw.
Well, the denominator that I put in there was the fact that none of this is verifiable, unless we're talking about primary sources. I heard somebody ask for primary sources. I heard somebody ask for primary sources, and then they said, "Well, yeah, this character wrote a letter." That's very strong.
All right, the Treaty of
That
Versailles.
is strong, and it's not just a letter; it's a lot of letters that
Oh.
cross-reference with each other.
We're dealing with history now, not science. Yeah.
Correct. Different standard that has to be applied.
I know
That's
that.
correct. So, what was your point with Star Wars reference?
He's got no scientific
on
evidence for the
Superman's
history
cape.
of Star Wars.
No,
Say
my
again? I
point.
didn't
My
hear-
point was, well, we're talking about the British. Then Neil brought up the point. Well, you know, they had so many soldiers, yada yada yada, and then we were questioning. Well, how do we know that any of this is even true?
Yes, I know I was here. Thanks. And then we had 10th come in and discuss some. Now, he didn't have them at hand, but I'm sure he can get them. So that's going to differentiate the situation.
What's the claim that the war didn't happen, or that? Because
No, let's not make sweeping generalizations. No, we're saying that it's back to the Orwellian, he who controls the present controls the past, and he who controls the past controls the future. Well, if you can control the history books and the narrative in them, then unless you've got somebody first-hand, primary source to actually back what you're saying, then you can only infer that it's correct based on the history and the stories that are told within the history books. Now, that's not to say there isn't primary source evidence for this particular war or anything that happened in it. But those primary sources, when you get down to having a look at them, what do they actually detail?
You
Do
just
they
need
back
to know
the
where the
story?
straight base is going when you got a chance.
You what, Neil?
No.
Straight base.
Go
sorry,
on
sorry.
mute.
You're on mute. Go on mute, Neil.
You have a curved base, Neil. That's the problem.
Did he just ask for a curved base?
I don't know. He asked for a straight
I
base.
thought I was on mute, guys. I'm hanging up
Nick,
cove base.
What's a straight base, Neil? That would imply you can get a curved base.
Straight base
Jesus.
and cove base. That's a little cove on it.
You're just all over the map. Okay, let's discuss
Oh,
why
it's
you come off
cove.
moot and the
Cove
situation surrounding
base.
it.
Cove, not curved. Coved.
Oh, coved.
Correct,
What
Nathan.
is going on in here?
We're just hammering things out, making sure that they understand they tugged on Superman's cape and got an ass whooping. Simple.
Why? Because we've had a whole load of first-person primary source evidence to back it when you appeal to the future.
Yes. That's not appeal to the future. That's appeal to the past.
When you said you
when
could get it
showed
later, and I'm sure it will be forthcoming, that wasn't an appeal to the future fallacy.
No, not you. You got the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. That's not a tense claim. Wasn't an appeal to the future. He just doesn't have those sources at hand. That's not dealing with the fallacy of appealing to the future. That something in the subject itself is going to happen in the future. Follow?
Yeah, in this subject matter, in the future narrative of this discussion, we might get some first-person primary source evidence.
Yeah, that's not appeal to a future.
I've just
fallacy.
turned it into one, though, haven't I?
Yeah, you did. You tried to, but it didn't work.
It did.
No, it didn't.
Everyone's all for ruining my jokes today. I don't like it.
I thought it was funny.
You're just trying to get out of the British getting their ass whooped. That's all. I understand. I got it.
They didn't cook.
Is that it? Hey, how many hours did that show run yesterday, man?
Including
6?
the pre-show and the setup. I did 6 hours yesterday. 5.5 of it was recorded.
Yep.
How many clips? Yeah, I knew I was going to get rumpus. And the echo is lovely too. I love that. Go ahead, Neil. Come off mute. Just come off mute, just randomly with the
Shut
reverse
up, I'm working.
beep.
My hand hit it. I'll put the phone in my pocket so I don't interrupt you. Chef Boyardee.
Chef Boyardee.
I
All
get
right,
it.
we done with this? You take your ass whooping and that's it? You be humble about it and move on?
Oh, you think we care? Oh, yeah, I would definitely.
Let's have some tea over
I
it.
do. I'm sorry,
Yeah, and
Chocolate,
that's
go
when
ahead.
it gets smelly, isn't it? That's when you start to look at it and you get these silly little narratives and you think, look at the world today. Look at the way stuff's written up in
No,
our
let's
past.
not. Definitely not. Let's not look at the world today. If I know anything about YouTube rules, right, do not mess with the current magic trick. Now, the inference is there whether I like it or not, but what Adam's just said, linked with what I've just said, if you want to stay safe on YouTube, if you want YouTube condoms, don't talk about the current magic trick, whatever it is. I mean, I'll go easier. Do you want to talk about COVID now? Yeah, go ahead. Hardly anybody will, because nobody gives a shit. Do they?
That's
Why? Well,
old
because
and
there's a new
busted.
magic trick on the block, but we're not going to be talking about that here under any circumstances. Just like when I was all for not talking about COVID. You want to talk about COVID now? Go ahead, knock yourselves out. What's that? Nobody
So,
cares.
I want to
Shocking.
point out something.
I wasn't actually referring to that. The point I was going to make was Vietnam. If you look at the narrative from Vietnam at the time, look at how it's summarized now, and think about how it will be summarized in 100 years' time. What we can say is the British were there, they weren't there. The narratives over what it was for, and like I say, you get silly little stories about tea, which become rather nonsensical. They're the things that smell to me in history. The fake reasons that you're often given. They're the things that I wouldn't agree with. But were we there? Did we take a mild kicking but hand one hell of a good one back before we left? Yes. But other than that, I don't think you've got much more certainty. Certainly not towards motivation and reasons. And like I say, silly stories like tea prices.
Indeed.
It wasn't the tea.
Hold on. Indeed, Adam's right. The segue onto the minutiae of the history and whether or not we can prove those details and motivations is far more important than what will be diluted down to just a mild ass kicking with an absolutely valiant.
My recollection of it was the tea was the cover story. They went after the guns. And the minute they went after the guns, they said, that's it. And the tea was about taxes without representation. So that it wasn't the tea, it was the guns. And right now they don't want that narrative because they want to come after the guns again. And I don't mean the British.
I was taught that
In
Native
Massachusetts.
American tribes were involved. So I don't remember the full story, but I remember Native American tribes were involved. That they were the ones that took on the British, or something like that.
No, they dressed up as Indians. They dressed up as Indians.
Oh, all right, that
The
makes
British?
sense. All right, that makes.
Who? The British dressed up as Indians?
I thought it was the Americans that dressed up as Indians.
They are Americans.
Yeah, they are Americans.
I'm sorry.
That would be considered very culturally inappropriate today.
I feel slightly offended.
Is that Paul?
I'm 12%.
No, Adam, you know, historically, they would be racist if they didn't consider themselves like that.
Yes,
No,
that is
the
Paul.
British had tea. The British had tea, and the Indians had teepee. Come on.
Well, I just like to point out something. I just like to point out something, right? That seems to be getting overlooked because people aren't really dealing with reality here. There is
Why?
money
Because
that's
the English
paid.
wasn't in it?
No, there's money that's paid, right, yearly, as far as I know, from the US to the Queen. And in Ireland, we can't fish in the rivers without getting permission from the Queen.
Rightly
in
so.
our own rivers.
Really?
Rightly so.
Right, yeah. So the British Empire didn't go away. It just changed face.
Who said it went
I
away?
agree.
Who said it's
there-
led
there
by
was
the
a-
British? All roads lead to Britain, do they?
No.
Brian's
We
just
do know
jealous
our-
because
who's-
Irish.
Whose ring does the Queen? Whose ring does the Queen kiss?
I didn't hear that.
Whose
Sorry,
ring does the
Nathan?
Queen kiss?
Well, it's not yours, that's for sure.
Not that kind
we
of
do
ring.
know all roads may not lead to Britain, but we know fish pie comes from Britain.
Any historical evidence that England lost the Revolutionary War?
The fact that they're not here. and that they would give up this continent for free. With all the
Maybe it was
resources.
too much of a hassle, 10th man. What if they won? And it was too much of a hassle, so they just gave independent as a satellite state.
I think you're right, Art.
That's why I brought the Queen into it.
Yeah, I think Arvin's right. The TSA rules were so tough, they decided not to go through the baggage check. Yeah.
This is just pain. This is just pain leaving the body of the Irish and the Dutch because they weren't involved. Where were they at?
Oh, we were over there, I have no doubt. We were there before any British turned up.
See some shit.
Really?
Yeah. We were there before any British turned up. There was Irish clans went over there, and Native American tribes. I think it was around the Carolinas, somewhere around there. Some of the Native American tribes from around there, they have it in their history that there was clans from Ireland went there and settled in there.
I think America was settled on way before the official colonization by many
Any
different
source material on this stuff? Maybe they changed that history too.
Absolutely,
But
it will be forthcoming in the future.
I mean, I don't know, man. Like for me, it's like how much of this stuff really. I mean, manipulating a situation can turn a walk to the store into World War III. You know, I don't know. Case in point, 100 years from now, there may be many primary sources and letters talking about the riots of 2020 here in New York City, right in the city that I work in every day, that I absolutely did not see, no one else captured it by video. But yet and still, it's a
all
story
sweet.
that's going to be written up as true.
Yeah, you're all good. Nobody saw you. They can't prove anything.
Will this still be described as mostly peaceful, Eli? Yeah.
All he saw was peaceful endeavors, didn't you, Eli? Didn't you?
No, I saw boarded up fronts. That's all I saw. Storefronts that were boarded up. I didn't see anybody actually committing the act.
Piles of bricks on the store.
That's exactly what my lawyer said too. You didn't see anything. You weren't there. You had nothing to do with it.
No, I was here. That's the point.
No, don't say that.
Did you see piles of bricks on the corners of the streets?
Yes, that
Hold on,
also
we gotta
that
ask a
also
question.
happened.
We got to ask a question in light of what Neil said in order to validate any of this. Is there any historical evidence that history itself exists and is not a creation in the present moment?
Say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal link, joining as a member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Bye.